guys are doing well. Obviously, this game week's a little bit of an interesting one. We only have one double game week, and it's going to be Watford versus Burnley. So the situation is probably going to be a lot of us going into one of the Watford forwards, perhaps even doubling up on one of them, and that is my plan precisely. So I will show you guys my team right now. It's pretty extravagant, but it will be Dennis captain, King vice captain, because none of those games are probably being cancelled. I mean, I could vice captain Cancelo just for the sake of it, but it really doesn't make much of a difference. The key thing here, of course, is I am benching Antonio, and DCL has been taken out of my team. Another interesting thing is I have a perfect 10.0 in the bank, so that will be the funds to potentially move Gray off of my team for Salah. And that also leaves me with a little bit of cash to actually go into someone like a Foden in the near future if I'm not interested in one of the players here. But we do know that, to be honest, that there are actually a lot of double game weeks coming ahead. We know that United potentially have one in 25. And amongst the clubs, if we just look briefly, I mean, every week we kind of do a little bit of searching in terms of matches played, and we know, of course, Burnley have a lot of postponed games. Perhaps there will be a time that I actually go back into Cornet and try and dip into the poisoned well again, but we'll see what happens there. Everton is just not that exciting to really own at this point in time because of the managerial situation, and I just like the prospects of West Ham versus Watford again. We know Watford are very, very poor defense. So when I kind of looked at DCL and Antonio and I was making decisions between the two of them, it really kind of struck me that I would rather have Antonio versus Watford as opposed to DCL versus Newcastle, because we don't know whether this Everton team is really capable of creating too many chances. I would say that, especially with Dean coming out of the team, you don't really have any kind of defenders who are really that creative. James Coleman really has got on quite a bit with his age, and the midfield is still very, very kind of robust. It's not very creative whatsoever. You're kind of relying on players like Andre Gomez and Alan to produce. And whilst, for example, some of their wingers, such as Gray or even Gordon, are interesting, it's probably not enough for me to say that Everton make a lot of sense to pick as a team. I don't think they're creating enough chances. Whereas with West Ham, whilst Antonio hasn't been as explosive at the start of the season, he's still been rather consistent in the last 5 games. I believe he's on two goals and 2 assists in the last five, and has got on decently well as a striker in this kind of tier. Especially when we look at other players like Watkins, who haven't really achieved much heights in the last few weeks. We know that, of course, Aston Villa have good games, and that's going to be a consideration as well. Someone like Coutinho could find his way into my team. Reguilon is a little bit of a question mark I have as well, but I do kind of like the odd fixtures that I can actually bring him onto my team. So, for example, next week for Southampton will be interesting again to try and bring him on. I don't really like the lack of consistent minutes that he has when he plays for Antonio Conte right now. As you can see, he does seem like an option that can be subbed off at any one time, and that's a little bit worrying, right? Because this was a game, for example, versus Leicester, where Tottenham were down, and Reguilon was brought on in the dying stages of the game so that they could actually try and go for a goal. And when we're picking an FPL asset such as a defender like Reguilon and deliberately trying to pick him for his goal contributions, it's not nice that we basically see a manager maybe not so dependent on Reguilon in the dying stages of the game, especially when they actually need to score, which is how we often expect him to contribute in our team. So perhaps he's a little bit of a question mark here too. I do really like the midfield setup. There's not much that's going to be changing. 2.8 mil in the bank, that's plenty to really make further changes. I don't really anticipate too many further changes other than maybe if I once again have to make another striker move, but I'm comfortable with that because of the fact that we have double game weeks. Someone like Broja, if he has doubles in the future, will be interesting. Clearly, Southampton have played a lot of games, so we're mostly looking at Tottenham assets, Watford assets potentially, and keeping them. But they will be at 21 at the end of this week, so they'll be quite close to the top of the pack in terms of games played. So it's really leaving perhaps the money in the bank to actually go for someone like a Jamie Vardy as well, and then seeing if I want to go for Burnley players. But that's kind of my decision making for now. The key thing, of course, is once again just making sure that I have the money for Salah, and I do have that, and even the money for Foden if I really, really want him in the future. But that's pretty much it. So let's actually have a look at some of the YouTube comments. So Rover, how are you doing today? Borlian, how are you doing today? think my chat might not have actually updated, so I'm just going to quickly refresh. So let's actually go through some of the comments. Henry Shefford says, Vamos. Henry, once again, thank you for being such a loyal contributor to the channel. Really appreciate you being around. Jerome as well. You've been around for many, many live streams. Hope you're doing well. Parth says, Bernardo to Sterling and Madison to Rafinha for a hit, or just Bernardo to Foden. Very tempted to go Sterling. Bernardo to Sterling and Madison to Rafinha for a hit. I would not go for Madison to Rafinha for a hit. Absolutely not. The reason why is because Madison, for me, has a very good game versus Brighton. I don't think Brighton have been very good in keeping clean sheets, and this Leicester side, really, even without Vardy, have been exceptional. Madison particularly has been electric for most of the season. I would actually say Tielemans has been very, very poor. So if I was going to ever do something to change my cheat sheet, at least to kind of book a transfer in the future, I would probably drop Tielemans to a fall, to be quite honest, because Tielemans has looked like he is very, very much happy to move away from Leicester, whereas Madison still looks exceptional. I would keep him. If you were ever to move someone else out, I might even be tempted to move Bernardo to Rafinha, and then if you have the money in the bank, you could maybe go back into Salah. Sterling is interesting, but one thing I will say is that Mahrez will be coming back soon. We know that Algeria were just knocked out in the AFCON, and that's going to have a lot of problems for Sterling, because remember when Mahrez was back in the team, Sterling was still kind of rotated out every other game, and when we have double game weeks potentially, right, very, very close in the future, you're going to be very worried as a Sterling owner, in my opinion, putting that much money in the bank towards Sterling when other people have double game weeks and you want to spend that cash quite readily. So that's my concern there with going Sterling. I'm much more interested in Bernardo to Foden if you wanted to do a single transfer. I wouldn't take Madison out. Alyssa, hey, good evening to you as well. Hamad says plans for the next game week. So yeah, that's a good question. The next game week plans are really just to go for Salah. If there's any kind of additional double game week news, then maybe I'll play around that like I have this week, where I kind of made a move to King, sorry. But I think the plan really is just to go for Salah to replace him with I mean, if we look at, let's say, if I bring Salah in for Gray, then I have a pretty complete team, because I'll be playing Antonio and Bowen next week. I'll definitely be playing, I think, Rafinha as well versus Villa. Jota, Trent all play. Cancelo, Laporte probably all still play. They have good games versus Brentford, which they actually kept a clean sheet already once this season, and I believe Laporte actually scored already. Cody probably goes to the bench as he plays versus Arsenal, and I really imagine that game could be either a 0-0 or something like maybe an Arsenal victory 1-0. I don't really expect Wolves to do well in that game. It's going to be the last week for Madison, unfortunately. So Madison will kind of sit on the bench, but I'm tempted to keep Madison because of the potential for the double game weeks. And then Gray kind of falls out of the team, because I'm really not excited about Everton's prospects. We'll have a look at and see how they actually do under the caretaker manager in Gaming 23 versus Aston Villa, and maybe I'll make a decision there. Of course, if someone has an injury, then maybe we can move around that. But I believe I'll be playing Reguilon as well, so that's going to be a back four, and then a kind of midfield four, and then probably picking, let's say, Antonio, and then one of Dennis or King. Even though I don't think they have the most exciting game versus West Ham, we still saw Dennis and King actually contribute together when they were actually last playing versus West Ham. So I'll probably make a decision between one of the two, and kind of and that's going to be my plans. I'll have a look at a wildcard team as well, but we actually do have a donation. So I have 10.7 to replace Son. Who shall I go for? So for me, I think that the most logical play this week, to be honest, is I would probably put that question back to you a little bit. Do you have the money in the bank to go for Salah in terms of the midfielders? So when you say you have 10.7 to replace Son, I'm imagining that maybe you have Salah on your bench or something like that. I would probably try and play around, maybe down, if you don't actually have Salah on your team, or you don't have the money to go for Salah on your team, I would try to play around going for a player like potentially Rafinha this week. He has a very, very good set of games. We know he's been quite a talisman this season, has been very consistent, and has good games ahead, really. And that should allow you to get Salah back in your team. If you're actually looking for a direct replacement for Son, then maybe I would actually probably suggest going for Foden. I don't think there's anything really wrong with Foden. I think Foden has been exceptional this season. So if we actually look at some of the combined statistics for Man City and kind of look at expected goals and expected assists, you can see Foden actually ranks at the absolute top here. Sorry, I think Foden's name might be cut out, so I'm just going to quickly resize this for you. So as we can kind of see here, Foden is really interesting because Foden has been basically the kind of leading expected goal involvement player within the team, and the only comparable options really are going to be someone like Mahrez, who we know is going to be coming back but probably not ready to actually play this game week, and then Sterling as well, who actually has a very, very high expected goal ratio. The one concern I have with Sterling is minutes for that kind of value, right? So, for example, if let's say Foden gets benched, I would be much more tempted to say that I'm happy that Foden gets benched because he's at an 8.0 price. Whereas with Sterling, you're dealing with someone who is much, much more expensive, and it doesn't seem worth it to have that kind of risk, even though City are such an explosive team. We know Foden has already had many, many kind of goal contributions this season. They both have 8, Sterling with 7 goals and 1 assist, and I believe 2 penalties during this kind of period. So I would be quite interested in really going for Foden if you wanted a single transfer. There's also a possibility that you actually roll the transfer this week, and because rolling the transfer is interesting for another reason. So if we actually just go back quickly to my team, I'll just resize the tab again. Rolling interests me this week because we have so many potential small double game weeks ahead, and this week where we basically two to 3 or even 4 hours before the deadline, we got the news that we have the Watford double, right? And in the future, maybe in 24, you have a potential double of Aston Villa as well. So I think Coutinho is actually quite interesting as a transfer. The reason why is because Aston Villa just haven't played many games. So if we actually look at the EPL table, you've got Aston Villa who haven't played too many games, and they're going to be falling behind most of the regular teams who have 1 game week or even a double game week. So for example, a team like Watford will be just a little bit behind. They'll be on 21 games, and then a team like Aston Villa will be just at the same pace with 21, whereas most teams have played 22 or even upwards of 23 or 24 games. So that is why I would probably suggest maybe looking into Coutinho as well. He's another option, and but as I said, I think you should plan first to make sure that you actually have a plan to go to Salah, and then you can make a play around either one of Foden or Coutinho, or even Rafinha if you need to budget down a little bit more. I wouldn't really look at any of the midfielders this week as kind of potential transfers in. If anything, you could actually roll a transfer and try to maybe direct your transfer towards maybe getting a Watford player, because that could still give a very, very solid gamble. And even though it seems very annoying to kind of price lock a player like Son on the bench, as you can see here, I'm quite happy to field this specific team with 10.0 in the bank. So I wouldn't necessarily think about trying to stretch your budget as much as possible. It's making sure that you actually have the team template that you have and that you want to have, really. I'm going to quickly go back to some of the YouTube questions now. So KDB or Foden was the question. I think KDB if you can afford Salah, but I would actually say Foden. It is a much more logical option for most standard teams, and that's why Foden was interesting for me. What is the best replacement for Mount? Potentially Coutinho around that kind of price range. I think Coutinho is interesting because, as I said, he has doubles, and he does look quite exciting, but it does seem like a little bit of a knee-jerk transfer right now to go for Coutinho. We still need to kind of see him play, make sure that he actually gets consistent minutes in the near future. In terms of KDB captain versus Dennis captain, I'd be more tempted to go for a Dennis captaincy. At the very worst, we have Dennis maybe getting 4 points. So that should be 8. I don't really think there's going to be cancellations with Burnley. That could be the one kind of concern there. Would you play Ronaldo or bench him? I would look towards benching Ronaldo with the kind of neck injury news. I don't really think that's very positive whatsoever. So I would be tempted to bench Ronaldo or even transfer Ronaldo out this week. Joe Matthews says, who would you sell, David De Gea or Ramsdale for Foster? I would sell neither, to be honest, because I just wouldn't. I don't think you want to spend a transfer on a keeper in a double game week. I would rather you roll the transfer, Joe, if you really didn't have any team problems. This way you can actually attack some double game week players who are playing in attacking positions and can actually be much more explosive. So if I gave the example of let's have a look at all the double game week keepers last week. I know De Gea was the most interesting one. But if you look at someone like Sanchez, who, for example, on paper had an okay double game week, he didn't do very well. So I think Sanchez was my points last week. So he just got 4 points in a double game week. And that's kind of what you're juggling with right now with Foster. I kind of like the situation that you have with David De Gea and Ramsdale. I don't think there's any issues there. And I would much rather own David De Gea when Arsenal have blanks in the future. So if we look at the fixture schedule, I believe Ramsdale has some future blanks. So you can see in 25 and 27, he has prospective blanks. These might change due to kind of postponements and kind of things around that. But I would say Ramsdale and David De Gea are still keepers. because they don't have any blanks and they have good games. Whereas Foster just isn't interesting. I think Watford are pretty much on for conceding every single game, and that's not exciting. So, but if you really had to make one, I'd probably take De Gea out because Ramsdale is a little bit more interesting. But I wouldn't really want to play Foster in those weeks, which is what I'm trying to say. When let's say Ramsdale has a blank, I'll have a look at Twitter very quickly. Hi Fran, is it worth to replace DCL or Antonio by King or João Pedro? Probably not worth a -4, to be quite honest. Dean or Cash and Coutinho, Foden or Rafinha. I would probably go for Dean, and I would probably go for. I guess you mean that you're definitely going Coutinho, and then or you mean Coutinho, Foden or Rafinha. I'd probably actually look at going for Coutinho, just because the chance of having a double for Aston Villa very soon is quite high. Jay Wavy, what's good? Hope you're doing well. I'm trying to kind of navigate this game week as much as possible. Basically, just trying to attack Dennis and King really this week. Marty says, "Hey Fran, would you do Ronaldo to King? Notice you did DCL also have him, but would rather keep." That's fine. I understand you want to keep DCL for Newcastle. That's completely reasonable. Netballer says Madison to KDB or Kane and Gray to Pedro and KDB. Honestly, I wouldn't be that tempted in taking Kane out of my team now. I think Kane is actually really, really interesting. And I don't really want to go out of Madison. For me, Madison has a good game. Kane might be the player you want to take out. I wouldn't necessarily make 2 transfers this week, but if you really must, then I guess you can do the Kane move if you want. I just wouldn't take Madison out at this point in time, just because he has doubles in the future. My one concern, as I said, with Kane is that you're taking Kane out, who has potential double game weeks, right? And you're moving into KDB, who is probably going to price lock you from Salah anyways. And even though he has one good single game week this week, I don't see the kind of point of the move. I'd rather you maybe take another striker out of your team and go into Pedro, because you're kind of going for a huge gamble here by dropping someone like Kane. And I don't know if you're taking hits for that, but I don't really see how it's worthwhile, even though you are basically just targeting this game week. You kind of need to think about the fact that there might be a game week 25, game week 24 with double game weeks in the future. Best 3 strikers for a wild card. I'd probably go for Dennis still. I'd still actually be tempted to go for Antonio. And then I might actually make a decision between Broja or someone like King, just to round out the wild card. And that's because for me this season, I think the story has really just been you want to have as much money as possible into your midfielders. You can see even in terms of defense, a lot of the defenders and the midfielders are completely outscoring all sorts of forwards. So Antonio's the leading forward at 98 points. I mean, what we're talking about here is that you shouldn't really have a strong 3 front line. If anything, you might even want to have a 4.5 front line, just so you can actually make sure that most of your funds are spent towards these sort of defenders that we've been talking about. So as you can see here, I've kind of got 4 out of 5, or I've got 4 defenders within the top kind of 7-ish. And we know Ruger and James aren't interesting in the near future. So really, we're talking about, especially with Van Dijk kind of being locked because we want to go for Salah. You know, we're saying that I have effectively 4 of what should be the maybe top 6 defenders right now in the league. The keeper situation is not as good. I probably actually would like to go for Ramsdale if I was being completely honest. And Jose Sa, as I said, has been super interesting. And I did want to actually wildcard him. He was one of the options, but the double game week was so tempting that I didn't go for it. He's done very well recently. As far as, let's say, the forwards, it's just tough, right? I would probably, I mean, even if you wanted to budget down, I mean, say maximum, I'd probably keep an eye on him. But if you're wildcarding now, I'd probably say go for Dennis, go for Antonio, so you can actually get him in the next few fixtures. I still think this is a very good run for this West Ham team. There's a very high likelihood that they would actually score versus United too. So realistically, we're saying that they probably have good games until after this Newcastle game. And then I think this kind of patch here between Wolves, Liverpool and Aston Villa might be a little bit rough, but that's already so far ahead. You probably already have other options, such as moving into Watkins. Watkins might be an interesting option too if you don't actually want to go for Antonio. I think he's got the cleanest run of games, but you're also going to make a decision between Watkins and Ings because they both play for the same team and potentially might be, you know, privy towards the same sort of chances. So if we actually look at, let's say, Aston Villa's underlying stats, that could be a good little nugget to kind of lean on. As we can see here, Watkins is still basically the kind of leader when it comes to getting chances for this team. And we know in terms of the forward comparison, I would say Ings has come off the bench a lot this season. So his minutes have been somewhat, I would say, reduced on that basis. But their goal involvements have been very, very similar because Watkins is not necessarily the most clinical finisher around. I'd probably be tempted if, let's say, if you weren't interested in Antonio, or if you wanted to really go for a setup where you still have at least two 7-point-X players, and maybe you can make a replacement of someone like a King and go for Antonio, Dennis, and Watkins if you want to do that. But I would actually be quite tempted to gamble on King and then make sure that you have basically the cash remaining to actually go for Salah if you wanted to wildcard this week. I wouldn't necessarily encourage wildcarding this week, but if you think your team structure is really hampered, then go for it. But maybe Watkins makes a lot more sense than Antonio, at least for now. So let's actually go back to, is Dennis playing? Definitely, yep. Mal from Twitter. Oh, nice to meet you. Good midfielder from Watford. Honestly, I don't really think there's many. So sorry to hear about that, Leanne. Yeah. When you say you're missing out, do you mean you don't have the chance to make transfers and things like that? All the best to you as well for this game week, and much love to you. Cliff Buckley says, a lot of people are playing Foster. Please explain to people why this is stupid. I don't think it's stupid. Foster is actually a very, very good secondary keeper, so I don't think there's an issue with playing Foster. If I remember, for example, the bench boost that FPL Foco really capitalized on, it was a Foster bench boost that actually really popped off for him. I'll be checking Twitter very quickly. Can I check DMs? Yeah, absolutely I can. Is getting Ben White in? I think it is a crazy move right now because Arsenal will have blanks very, very quickly. So I don't really see how it's worth it. You don't have any Watford forwards. Would you bring King or Dennis? I'd probably actually go for Dennis and Captain Dennis. Bench one, Madison, Smith Rowe, or Gray. Definitely bench Gray. I'll be checking Twitter DMs right now. All right, so let's actually start from. Okay, fine. Let's actually start from the top this time. A bit unfortunate with Dennis captain and -4 from Madison to Mount, but pretty good. Who to bring in for Mount? I would probably say Coutinho because this player doesn't have Watkins, so I would say I'll probably go for Coutinho. And as I said, I'm not that high on going for Foden at this point in time, just because you kind of have a slight risk right now with Foden, or at least if you triple up on Man City now, they have too many single game weeks, and that maybe leaves you with too little room to play around the doubles. Let's have a look at Mio transfers and captains. So the situation here is that Tottenham have a very bad game, so Emerson and Reguilon are question marks. We have the money to kind of respend on Livramento, and then we've got Trent and Cancelo. So we've got Foden, Bowen, Jota, Rafinha, Gundogan, Ronaldo, King, Watkins. So Ronaldo has a potential neck issue, right? So that's going to be a big concern. You have 2 free transfers. I would be tempted in probably. I would maybe downgrade Ronaldo into Dennis. I know it sounds crazy. Saving the money to go for Salah next week. So basically, you save the money to go for Salah this week, and then you make potentially another transfer within a defender. So that would probably be my recommended play this week. I would probably keep, unfortunately, Royale and Reguilon on the bench. I'd play Foster. I'd play Trent Cancelo. Maybe, let's say, replace someone like Livramento, get another kind of budget player. A lot of players are interesting. For example, you actually have the money to go for someone like an Ait Nouri, who could be quite interesting. He has a decent game versus Brentford. I would maybe look at Ait Nouri. Then you play a back 3, then you play a midfield 5, and then you play a 3-5-2. Or sorry, you could actually play a 3. You could actually play a 3. Would you actually bench one of these players in the midfield? It's tough to actually bench Gundogan, but that could be an option too. It's going to be hard though, actually. Would you bench Watkins this week? Potentially not. But I would actually look at seriously downgrading Ronaldo because of his neck injury. And that should actually give you money in the bank to go for Salah next week. Luke Irving. So do you think this is the right team for Game Week 23? Rafinha on the bench. Honestly, I'm not sure if I would actually take Cody out. I would play Rafinha in order of Cody. I'll have a look at that guy's team. Great to Foden, free transfer. Anyone else taking a hit? That looks good to me. I'm gonna quickly look at FPL Harvey's tweet. Hi mate, I've got 2 free transfers. You're thinking great to Foden and DCL to King. Was looking at Son to KDB, but I'm just going to transfer him out to Salah. No, completely agree with you. I really like the first move that you actually suggested. I think that would be the play. who would I sell Laporte for? Probably Royale. I might sell Laporte for Royale. Somewhere. So, hi, Fran. With my team, I was thinking to bring in Dean/Diaz for Alonso. I was also thinking it was worth -4 for Buckman to foster or play Ramsdale. Still got my free hits in a wild card. You've got 0.5 in the bank. So I wouldn't actually look at, honestly, I'd probably look for a defender transfer. I'm just going to quickly look at your bench. Soufal, that's a bit of a tough game. Gallagher has a tough game as well. I like Martinelli this week. I like Dennis captaincy. Nothing wrong with Calvert-Lewin, to be quite honest. I would actually go for Laporte. I'm really not sure if you want both Alonso and Rudiger versus Tottenham. Maybe that's actually the right play because it's a very good matchup. But I like the prospects of Laporte this week. And Laporte would actually save you a little bit of money too. I wouldn't go for Dean this week necessarily. I think you go for Luca Dean when there's actually a double game week. I'm going to quickly roll down a little bit just so I can actually capture people's tweets. Wildcard active, your thoughts, need a long-term plan. All right, okay, let's have a look. Okay, so you've got Laporte, Cody, Cancelo, Trent. Yep, perfect. Ramsdale's really, really nice. Sanchez is a really, really good cover as well. So we have Rafinha, Bowen, Foden, Jota. Yep, perfect. Little kind of interesting. So I think the one consideration, you're going to bench Coutinho. I hope you're not doing that. I'd probably go Coutinho in for Cody, and I'd probably go for... I actually think your team 2 is really, really nice, because I know you've deliberately done this team so you can actually get Salah into your team. And I actually really, really, really like the kind of midfield setup. So I would probably go for and play around that. I'm going to quickly go back to YouTube chat very briefly. It's very hard to actually follow all the DMs, guys. How would you take Madison out for KDB for a -4? You already have Foden. I wouldn't do that, Anka, for a -4. I just don't really think it's worth it. I think the money that you're probably looking at maybe spending going towards a KDB could be going into Salah. You heard Dennis has COVID. Is it true? I haven't heard that anywhere, but I'm hoping not. Antonio rested. Yep, Antonio is going to be rested for me this week. I don't think it's a great matchup for Antonio, if we're being honest. I'm going to quickly start from the bottom now, just so I can be a little bit fair to everyone. I agree with that. Hey man, I've been having a brutal few game weeks. Should I be wildcarding this? Okay, it's tough. So Tarkowski's not nice. Royale's not nice. Keane's not nice. Ronaldo, yeah. I probably would wildcard. And the reason why I say this is for multiple things. So maybe I'd look at replacing Guaita. Maybe this is the time to go for Ramsdale and then another backup keeper who's a little bit more interesting. Bernardo doesn't look that good. Watkins is nice. Ronaldo has a neck injury, so that's a concern for the team. Keane is a concern. Tarkowski is a concern. To be fair, maybe you don't actually. So what would we do this week? So we would play Bernardo. We'd play Watkins. We have Ronaldo captaincy, which I'd change to King. King captaincy. And then we would probably just play Dallo because he's been starting the last 2 games. We don't play Tarkowski. We just play... The backline is an issue. I would just try to fund Laporte in the team, and that's what I would probably do. I don't think Gabriel Jesus is a good pick. I would probably go for Foden just for kind of team building reasons, right? Foden is someone who actually allows a lot of teams to actually go for Salah, so I would definitely go for Foden this week. Antonio to Dennis, worth it, or roll transfer. I'd probably roll. I've gone off DCL personally because I still think Antonio has been very, very effective this season. Not very explosive, but we don't really know exactly what's going to happen under DCL with new management. So that's going to be why I've taken DCL on my team. What is the best wildcard team? Let's actually quickly build a wildcard team because a lot of people have been kind of asking similar questions. To be honest, at this point in time, right, if I was actually making a wildcard, I might actually switch my keeper back into Ramsdale. But just to let you guys know as well, my plan was to actually switch into Ramsdale in 28 when he plays Watford. But that's just to let you guys know, since I have De Gea in my team. Anyway, so I would go for Ramsdale and probably Sanchez, because Sanchez, I don't think he has this. Does he have the same blanks? So Ramsdale blanks 25, 27. When does Sanchez blank? That's fine, exactly. So we have Sanchez versus Watford, and then we have Sanchez versus Villa. Totally fine. I'd go Trent, Cancelo, Laporte. Maybe I would actually change Reguilon, so let's take him out for now. I'd probably have... if I was going very aggressively, I would actually go Ait Nouri for now. Maybe play him. I'd go Rafinha, Madison, Jota, Bowen, and not Gray. I'd maybe actually be tempted to go for Coutinho already this week. And the reason why I say this is because if any of these players, right, don't have double game weeks soon, then they can just go straight out for Salah. And maybe instead of Antonio, let's say if you don't want to go Coutinho as well, you can go for Watkins. That's another option. So Watkins could be a little bit template here. Would you want to start the wild card off with Dennis and King? Potentially, as I say, because they still are quite far behind the schedule, right? So if you look at Watford, if they play a double game week this week, they'll be on 21. Most teams will actually find themselves to be back on 21 or 22. Most teams here, as you can see, have played 21 games, so they will be at the end of this game week on 22. So Watford are still in a good position where they probably still have another impending double. But maybe if you don't want to gamble that, then I think maybe we can take King out of a kind of placeholder, and we can think about some transfers for the defense first. So in terms of defenders, I'd actually probably try to round out my team a little bit with someone from Spurs still. So I'd probably maybe just kind of stick with Davies as a very kind of simple bench option. And then Ait Nouri and Davies are very, very interesting defenders that come out. If you want to actually... The main concern with going for an Arsenal player who is another kind of very interesting defensive kind of option is going to be the fact that you have Ramsdale as your keeper ready. And then you have two blanks where I wouldn't really suggest having a very, very weak bench at these times where you already kind of have locked yourselves into a situation where, let's say if you have a Chelsea defender now or an Arsenal defender, you know that you're going to be dealing with a lot of issues with the blank game weeks for them. So I'd probably look towards kind of building a structure like that. Maybe, so right now we have plenty of good midfielders. The question, of course, is let's say if we actually change suddenly one of them into Salah, how much money do we have left in the bank? So this could easily be a Watkins still. You could go for a Watkins now. And if you, let's say, think that, or sorry, something like an Antonio, my bad, would be quite interesting. And maybe if, let's say, you're satisfied with having Watkins in the team and you don't want Coutinho, then you could actually go for a bit of a gamble and go for Foden. Like, this is a team structure that I kind of like. The one thing, as I said, is that for me, Coutinho is actually a little bit more interesting because he has potential double game weeks. So I would be quite happy living with the City defense, because we know with defenders, I think they've got potentially I think they don't have the best ceiling in necessary double game weeks. I think midfielders always have the best ceiling. So that's kind of how I would like to play it. It seems like United have impending doubles in the future. If you're interested in going for a huge gamble, then I think Greenwood can be someone to consider over this kind of stretch of games here. I know it sounds crazy, but the way you have your team set up, you can actually play 4 defenders this week. You can play 4 midfielders. So, for example, let's say we just play Rafinha for now, and we have a lot of money in the bank, which I actually think this is how you should play your wild card. You should actually have money in the bank. Even Kane is a potentially good option if you don't want to go for Salah, but that's a very, very kind of aggressive sort of decision making that I wouldn't necessarily follow. So I'd probably play a team like this. I'd probably play Dennis and Captain Dennis, Rafinha, Madison, Jota, Bowen all have good games. I'd probably play Watkins and Coutinho as well, to be quite honest, and probably play a 3-5-2 with Ait Nouri first bench. That could be one option this week. And then that kind of gives you with the money straight to go into Salah for the next week. I don't really see how there's any other alternatives you can go for. You might want to go for KDB as well. So, for example, De Bruyne is interesting. De Bruyne could be an option you can go for if you, let's say, want to capitalize on the single game week and then go straight into Salah for the next one. That is another option too. You would also have the money in the bank to, and that this is kind of nice, right? Because you don't have to play around Villa so much. So this could be a potential wild card where you basically book in a transfer in the future to go back into Salah, and I think you would be quite happy to play around this kind of team. So that would be kind of nice. But yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of trying to think about potential wildcard options that we actually have. Oh, Blair, I'm so sorry I missed the question after the wildcard. But however, I'm on the Discord. Thank you so much. Nice to see you around. Would be nice if you actually PM'd me with your username so I actually know what your username is on Discord. Lukaku to João Pedro or King. I would actually go for King just because of the chance of getting penalties. I think that both Burnley and Norwich might be good opportunities for King to actually get onto the score sheet finally. I know King hasn't really scored since game week 13, but for me, I would say that João Pedro, even though he seems like the most informed player, is someone who still drops deep in terms of the kind of front three structure that they have. And it just provides him with much less chances of actually attacking. And so I would be much more, interested in going for King. I personally actually went for King this week myself. And yeah, I like the move to move away from Lukaku. That kind of sets you up for Salah very, very closely. So that's very nice. Dennis for King captain. I'm tempted to actually go for a Dennis captain. That's going to be my move. Should you bench Moura or Gray? I'd probably bench Moura, to be quite honest. Is Ronaldo going to start? It doesn't seem like he will. It might be the case that he has a neck injury. Gundogan to Rafinha or Coutinho in. I'd probably go for Coutinho. I still like the transfer of Coutinho over Rafinha, that is. Henry Shepard featuring Ben Rama. Do you think he'll be interesting when he comes back? Worth a -4 for Coutinho. Who's going -4 for Coutinho, guys? Walker over Laporte. I wouldn't go for Walker over Laporte. Laporte's interesting because he always is a goal threat. So if we actually look at Man City stats together, I know you guys won't actually see Laporte's name, but if I look at expected goals and expected assists, then actually Laporte is much higher than Stones and Diaz in terms of his expected goal threat. He's actually kind of similar to Stones, to be fair, but we know that Stones has much less minutes, and Walker is way down at the bottom next to Nathan Ake. So not very interesting at all to be owning Laporte. Let's go back to some of the Twitter DMs, though. I think Foden is actually more guaranteed to start. What would you do with this TC? I'm thinking about Kane to Dennis and Son to KDB. Like the moves, but what about Salah? Who to captain? Henry says 3.8 in the max. Should you roll this? And who to captain and bench? So the one reason why I would maybe suggest roll, I would actually play Lowton. So I would actually be tempted to play Lowton over Cucurella. I'd maybe have Cucurella maybe first bench. Ronaldo is a little bit of a concern, but if he plays, that's nice. I wouldn't necessarily bench Ronaldo if you're kind of stuck. The reason why I suggest rolling is because if you are like the type of manager who doesn't want to go for the Watford gamble this week, then clearly you might want to just do a double transfer into Salah. However, I think attacking this game week, it is an opportunity to go into someone like a King. And then you already have a move basically booked in where you go from Gray to Salah if you actually have the money in the bank, right? Which you should, because 3.8 plus the kind of Gray to Salah transfer should work out quite well. My plan, Lucas out for KDB plus -4 from Tony to Dennis Kling. Share your thoughts. I would actually probably go for... Once again, I would raise the question about, are you worried about maybe getting an easy way to Salah? If you think the transfer in the subsequent week is just going to be Salah, that's fine, and you want to kind of just attack the game week, I completely understand. Going -4 out of Tony. So we're going to play Cancelo, Trent, maybe Alonso, maybe Lamptey. So we have basically 2 locked-on defenders. Then we actually play definitely the kind of 4-piece midfield. If you bring in, let's say, a Dennis stroke a King, then you'll have a front 3. So we just need to play a 3-4-3, or we can play a 3-5-2, where maybe you bench Antonio if you want to. I would actually be, let's say, interested in keeping the Moura money, in a sense where you... Okay, so if you go for Tony, I'm trying to think about whether you actually have the money to go into Salah. So 6.5, we know Salah's 12.7, so You just need 6.2, right? So if we go for Dennis, how much is Dennis right now? Is he 6.2? Oh, you still actually have the money to go for Salah next week. That's really nice. So if we go Dennis now, he'll be 6.1. You have 0.5 back, then you have 6.2, then you can go straight into Salah. I actually like the move where maybe you just make the kind of forward transfer and then you go for Salah next. I'd go for KDB since you actually have Salah on your team. If you can afford KDB, I would go for KDB. Should you bench Antonio for Madison? I would do that, yes. Johnny Barlow says, what am I thinking? I would probably captain King if I was being honest. Otherwise, I actually really like the team, and I'm really happy that you actually went for the Lookman differential. Hope that kind of works out for you. Hi, Fran. What could be better? Plans to bring in Salah and bench boost next week. And that actually looks good to me. I wouldn't really make any comments, especially since you actually have a plan towards Salah. That's fine. Any changes you'd make? Use the wild card. How much money in the bank? That's the one question I'd have. I'd maybe also replace Amarte. That's the only thing I would say. New question. Should you work towards this in the future or this with either Antonio / DCL / Broja? Let's see. So we actually have a Salah KDB team at the bottom. And then, right, so the kind of difference is Laporte. But you also have much more money in the bank for another striker. I like Team 2 because it kind of affords you a little bit more flexibility. And the reason why I say that is because I would rather you have a team structure where you have a premium front kind of or a defensive three, right? In the structure in the top where you have Ait Nouri, Cash, and Davies, I would probably argue that they're not at this point in time premiums. So I'd much rather you have Laporte and kind of base your team around that. Whereas for me, Foden and KDB, I don't think the differences are too huge. I would much rather you actually have a much more succinct structure with a strong kind of back three to start the team off with. Thoughts on your transfers? Let's see. So you're keeping Salah, fair enough. You're keeping, I guess Gray might be one to make way. Can we afford Coutinho? I don't think we can actually. But Rudiger is someone that we need to take out of the team too. I would actually maybe go for Laporte and Coutinho. So the reason why I say this is kind of, you can then play Laporte, Trent, Cancelo. I really like the City back two formation. Then you have Coutinho, which helps you kind of target the issue of not having Villa players, which is actually something that is a present issue in my team. And this way you can actually play 4-4-2 this week, where you just play King Captain potentially. And maybe Soufal just plays off the bench. It's going to be tough, where I think, yes, it's a little bit annoying to actually have Soufal playing versus United. But I think this structure makes the most sense for me, because Foden might be one that could be someone who makes way in the future, and then through that you can maybe upgrade someone else. But for most weeks, you can even maybe change Soufal as well if he doesn't seem interesting. I would rather go for a back three premium for the rest of the season. And I think Laporte and Cancelo are very, very nice locks. Maybe you just change Soufal around. Coutinho kind of covers your Aston Villa maybe hole. And then, yeah, I think Laporte just has much better games in the near future. I mean, we had a look at those City games, right? I would really like to have Laporte here. I mean, even if, let's say, he wasn't playing in every single game, we all have strong benches, which you would once Salah returns. So that's the nice situation. Maybe even change Livramento too. If you don't want to go out of Rudiger now, that could be another move. So Rafinha plus Livramento replacement is also another option. Because I can understand why you might not want to play Soufal this week. So maybe if you replace Livramento with someone like Ait Nouri and then replace Gray with someone like Rafinha, that could be quite interesting too. Hi Fran, was planning to roll, but now attempted to drop Antonio for King. What do you think? Any captaincy shouts? I'm going Dennis personally. I wouldn't necessarily drop Antonio. I think Antonio has a really good fixture versus Watford next week, where I'm pretty sure he scored in that game, right? Oh no, sorry, he did assist. But it's still an exciting game where I think West Ham can actually score a lot of goals there. I'm going to quickly flick back to the chat very quickly. I might have missed a donation from Alex Riley. Antonio / Bernardo to KDB to Dennis / KDB -4. So my question, Alex, is do you still have money in the bank to go to Salah next week? And if you don't want to go for Salah, are you comfortable with missing Salah? Otherwise, I would say that the moves do make sense. I'm not so interested, as I said, in dropping Antonio. But if you have the money to go for Salah in the next week, and maybe you don't already have King in your team, then I kind of like the move. You do have money, then yeah, I would probably finance that kind of move. Bruno to KDB or roll. I'd probably roll there. Henry Shepard, thank you for being a member for 3 months. It's been awesome having you around. Fran, thoughts on Isco and Hazard winning the game for us? I'm not going to say the last part of that message. But honestly, I think Isco has had some bright little moments this season, and it's been nice to actually see those glimpses, right? Where when we were watching Prime Isco 2 or 3 years ago, I mean, it was fantastic. And with Hazard, I mean, a little bit of suspect defending from Elche, but I will take that definitely. I think with Hazard, unfortunately, he still hasn't really seemed to turn the clock fully around, but that's okay in a sense because we've got Vinicius this year who's been amazing. So we'll see. But it's nice to obviously have these kind of players come off the bench. If you remember the Zidane season where players like Morata, James, and Isco were all playing in the kind of substitute team, and we had massive rotation and we won the league, I thought that was amazing to actually watch the kind of B team do so well, and then Isco kind of promotes himself towards the Champions League final, right? I'm gonna quickly go back to the DMs though. Maze, hi, I really need help here. I have 2 free transfers here in the bank. Honestly, this team looks really good. So you're keeping Salah, that's fine. Who is actually a good replacement for Gray? Do we have a replacement for Gray even? At that kind of price point? Is there really an option? 0.0 in the bank. That's tough. Honestly, what about gambling on Martinelli? Does it sound crazy? Who's the defender here that we could replace? So, not a big fan of... Honestly. I would maybe gamble on Martinelli. I know it sounds crazy, but why not? Like, you've got a very, very good fixture versus Burnley. He could be a very, very good, interesting differential. Yes, he has blanks in the future, but the way I'm looking at your team, Reguilon and Salah can come off your bench very quickly. You've already got a front 3 that's quite nice. You're not kind of pigeonholing yourself into going for double Watford now. For me, I'm happy to pigeonhole myself into double Watford because I actually have a really strong bench. But when I'm looking at your bench, I would say maybe Dawson isn't someone I would like to play week on week. Reguilon is not really a problem, I would say. You know, I think as long as he gets 80 minutes of game time, I think he's interesting. So yeah, I would actually say maybe go for a gamble Martinelli, or I would actually just roll. Unfortunately, you can't really roll in this situation. How much is Dawson actually? That could be another move to go for, to kind of just take Dawson out of your team because it doesn't seem like he's interesting. Dawson out for Ait Nouri. I would say Ait Nouri makes a lot of sense to take Dawson out of your team if you don't want to go for... The reason why I say this is because you've got Salah, who's going to be the best target for the next game week. And you're intentionally kind of playing around that. You have a very good keeper structure. Dawson is the only problem I see in your team. Gray is another problem who I kind of see as not a huge problem because he actually has really good games and could potentially pop off. So that's the situation you have there. I'd maybe look at getting Dawson out, but I would only focus on one transfer and then rolling the other one so that you have 2 in the next week. Hey Fran, who do I start / transfer? I was planning Bernardo to KDB captain at Smith Rowe for Coutinho, but I'm leaning towards rolling transfer and captaining Dennis. I agree. I would roll. This way you can actually kind of focus on. So you have a lot of players in your team right now. I would say the main issue is that so the main issue is you have one Chelsea player and then you have 3 Arsenal players. All of these players will be subject to at least 1 blank over the next 4 to 5 game weeks. So that is my main issue. And I think if you roll the transfer, you make one and you make 2 transfers next week, then you can actually start to maybe alleviate the issue. And this game week, all the Arsenal players have good games. Alonso might not be someone you want to start, which is exactly why you've done your bench order as you have. So I can completely understand going for that. I wouldn't replace Mount for a hit. I wouldn't replace Mount for a hit. I'd replace him the next week. I would actually just roll. The reason why I say this is because you can play Laporte, Cancelo, Trent. I would probably play a 3-4-3 and just keep it simple, right? Maybe Gray on the bench, play Mount. Chelsea have always had the better of Tottenham, in my opinion, in the last 2 years, and I don't really see much of that changing. I really think that is quite a sizable kind of team differential. I mean, Conte even kind of commented on that himself after the cup game. So I really do like Mount here, unless Mount's injured, and I'm unaware of that. Doesn't seem like it, no. Magic Master Tricks, thoughts? No Bruno, 1 free transfer, 0 mil in the bank. The only thing I would say is maybe you can gamble the Ronaldo injury. Otherwise, I don't really see any kind of moves that really pop up in my mind. So that's what I would say to you. Justin Cho, hey Fran, kind of lost what transfer to do. You've got 0.1 in the bank. Which transfer should you do? All right, let's try and keep it simple. The only reason why I say how about rolling is because if you look at the team this week, right? Okay, maybe Kane has a double next week and that's not a problem. But at least you're going to alleviate then. But I would say the biggest thing about this team right now with 0.1 in the bank is how do you go into Salah? Because you can't go straight from Fernandes into Salah. And then you've got issues in your team when it kind of pertains to Alonso, who has a future blank. I still think Alonso actually has a good game versus Spurs. You could do that as well. Sell Gray to a cheaper mid to Ramsey and upgrade Bruno. But then we could actually do that in the next week, right? Because I wouldn't say you would probably start Gray this week. So you can roll in that kind of structure. Does that kind of make sense to you? So why not roll so you can actually go straight into Salah? And I don't think Bernardo has a particularly bad game. I'm sure he could actually pop off. Alonso might be a question mark, but then, yeah, as I say, like the pressing concern might be Salah, so I might roll. Thinking of rolling the transfer, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Cancelo or Foden captain. Hey Fran, maybe continue for Gray. So the captaincy, I kind of, if you really don't want to go for Dennis or King, I can completely understand going Cancelo. I can understand rolling the transfer as well. I really like the team structure you have. It's kind of nice that you're a little bit ahead of the curve with having Dean. Hopefully he does work out very quickly. Dennis, hey Fran, can you give your quick thoughts on your team? Mount to KDB, Antonio to João Pedro. Thank you in advance. The one concern I have here is that you're almost attacking this game week a little bit too hard. So my question is how you get back into Salah in this team. And then the -4, is it worth it, right? Antonio for me has a very, very good game the next game week. Mount is someone I would like to replace. But even if you wanted just to do a simple transfer, then it's done. Fair enough. Good luck to you though. I mean, João Pedro's a very, very big differential, so I hope it works out for you. Who's the captaincy on? Sam, thoughts? Like this team? Ronaldo for Dennis and save funds for Salah, game week 24. Agree? Big boy Dama, I think you're taking -4 this week. For a 1 week punt, would you go King, Dennis, or I'd probably still go Dennis. I'd still play maybe Antonio. Just because I think Gundogan hasn't played many minutes consistently. Alejandro Perez. I'm thinking cash to slash Cucurella to Laporte or Moura to Sterling, or just roll the damn transfer because I literally have no idea. I'd probably roll in this situation. If you have no idea, then why not target Gaming24 and try to make a play around that, right? All right, I'm going to actually go back to my team now, guys, because I'm actually running out of time. I'm just going to make sure I actually have the right kind of order. So yeah, I'm planning on Dennis captain, Gray second bench, Antonio first bench, Rafinha. Yeah, for me, I think the games make sense. I think Cody has a very good game. Brentford, I really don't think Brentford are a great team. I know they smashed Wolves last time, but I'm really tempted to play Cody to lock in what should be hopefully a clean sheet. And then Antonio, Gray, Reguilon. Maybe this is a really strong bench this week, but I think I've made the right moves in my head, so I'm kind of happy to stick with the structure. I'm going to quickly look at YouTube chat and kind of go through that very quickly. I hope I can answer some people's questions. I'm sorry that I didn't manage to actually answer everyone's. There's obviously kind of too many questions. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. I'll try and respond to you guys sometime later, but that's just unfortunately how it is. Let's have a look. So you made the Bernardo Rafinha move. Yep, that makes sense. Hello, Fran. What are my transfers this week? I've gone out of DCL and I've gone into King. The idea really is to make sure that I put as much money as possible into the midfield over the next few weeks and play around the double game weeks where the midfielders have them. Worst case scenario, I maybe just swap Dennis back into a Watkins in the near future. Hey, Fran, should I play Dawson or Reguilon? I'd probably play Reguilon. Hey, Fran, start Cody or Coutinho? Definitely Coutinho. Moura to Coutinho for -4. Happy with that move. What's your pick? Antonio on bench for Smith Rowe. I think so, yeah. That seems logical. Foden or Kane captain? I would go for a Kane captain. Potential raid incoming. Who's the raid from, guys? Hey, Fran, start Cody or Coutinho? Definitely Coutinho, my friend Tactic. Why Dennis over King? So King is on on penalties, but I just think that Dennis is a much more clinical player from the eye test, and I prefer that. Focal. Honestly, FPL Focal is an absolute legend. I would love to swear, but thank you so much, Focal. It's been awesome seeing your channel grow. I remember watching the videos from the start of the season when you're making some of the kind of long form content that you're going for, and it's really nice, of course, with the kind of scene where you have the kind of musical background. And it's been awesome kind of looking at your content grow as well, where you're creating these kind of videos that a lot of us aren't making on a week-to-week basis. Like a lot of us make so much short form content, and it's nice to see that you're such a forward thinker in that sense. And yeah, it's been awesome seeing you like hit rank 1 as well. I didn't think anyone would hit rank 1 like from a social media circle this year, and actually like actively following someone at those ranks is amazing. And nice, David De Gea captain as well last week. I was actually quite against it. And obviously I look like an idiot, so here we are. Bowen or Gray to start? I'd probably go for Bowen. He's just much more in form, and to be honest, he was actually quite close to scoring versus United the first time round. If you remember Benrahma, he almost fed an assist towards you know, a player. I think Benrahma almost fed an assist into, you know, in the game that Benrahma scored like this kind of really fluky long shot, Bowen was actually very close to scoring. Alyssa says, can you check TM Mal on Twitter? Yeah, absolutely. I can have a look. Okay, either Alonso to Laporte, Madison to Rafinha. Yeah, I would go Alonso to Laporte. Gallagher to Rafinha and bench Bowen, but kind of just want to bench Rafinha as he plays Norwich and Brentford after this Liverpool game. Yeah, I kind of get the move. It's a tough one because I think Laporte is the player at start. Ronaldo's a big concern. Alonso actually doesn't have a bad game versus Tottenham. That's the one kind of drawback. So I would be a fan of the Alonso to Laporte move or the Gallagher to Rafinha move, but we know Gallagher is a fantastic player. So he's basically one of those midfielders this season where, I mean, like, look at these midfielders. Like, they're all good options, really. I can't even complain. In this specific game week as well, I wouldn't mind anyone playing, like, any of the Arsenal players, especially. And then when we look at Madison, Bowen, Rafinha, I mean, those guys have been absolutely great. Lucas Moore is a questionable rise for me. I think that's the one decision that I look at as a little bit questionable. But he still has decent games ahead, especially with Son out. So we'll see what happens there. Jankster Jr. says, have De Gea and Foster. Whom? Foster. I'd start Foster. Start Foster. Absolutely start Foster. I think that's it, right, guys? Game's updating. Good luck, guys. Martinelli or Odegaard? I'm actually a bit of a bigger fan of Martinelli. I don't know if you guys saw the press conference yesterday's, but Klopp was very kind of admiring of Martinelli's performance. And ironically, I think 4 to 5 years ago, when Martinelli was an 18-year-old or even 17, I think Klopp was extremely complimentary of Martinelli. Martinelli is very direct as a player, and I think he's got very quick feet and is super direct in goal. Odegaard is a fantastic kind of technical player. As a Madrid fan, I was actually watching him in Sociedad all the time, and unfortunately, wrong Malcolm. I'm so sorry. Did I mess up? You guys have to message me on Discord. There's almost too many Twitter. I will try and respond as much as possible. I'm so sorry, Mal. I'm so sorry. All right, let's have a look at your comments. You have 2 free transfers, and you were planning on Broja and Duffy out for Aït-Nouri. To be honest, those were actually really good options, and I think it's really nice because you actually probably listened to the stream and listened to my suggestion of Aït-Nouri. To replace Son, I think the Son replacement is just going to be Salah. I hope you played Foster as well. I see what you mean about Ramsdale's 6+ points, but I wouldn't say that Foster's points are nailed towards the 4 points, because he can get a lot of saves in these kind of scrappy games, especially since Watford are playing versus somewhat weaker opponents. We know the quality of chances that, for example, Burnley and Norwich are going to provide aren't going to be that good. Once again, I'm really sorry that I missed the message before the deadline. But I hope you made those Aït-Nouri and Dennis moves. I imagine that Son is basically a transfer you book in the future to maybe replace Ronaldo with as well. Especially with Ronaldo's kind of neck injury situation, I think bringing back Salah as soon as possible is probably in your best interest. And then you can also look towards maybe, especially with let's say Smith Rowe, who has blanks, right? The best situation that we have now is when you do the move to go into Salah and go out of Ronaldo, you'll have money to upgrade someone like a Smith Rowe. And players like Coutinho, who might have a double game week, would be players that you can actually target effectively. Or you can actually go for some of the players like potentially even another City player with the kind of money you have in the bank. I'm not a huge fan of Sterling, so that's why it's kind of tough thinking about going for a second City attacker. I know some people have gone for Foden and KDB, but that's the kind of situation. I like the transfers you made. I just think that with Son, it's going to be just going straight for Salah, because I think Salah's 12.7, right? So hopefully you can just spend that kind of money within the forward, going for maybe a budget forward potentially. And who knows, maybe if Ronaldo gets, and let's say if Ronaldo actually seems fine, you went Coutinho in prep for a double game week. Let's hope for my sake Watford don't keep a clean sheet. I don't think Watford will keep a clean sheet, so if that's what you're worried about, I think the ceiling could be quite similar. I like the Aït-Nouri and Dennis moves. Going for Coutinho is totally fine. I guess it was just what, like if it was a -4, that's not too bad, and hopefully there's double game weeks to come so that you can actually attack that. I guess the question would probably be how you maybe go out of or go into Salah, and that's probably just going to be moving around Smith Rowe and Ronaldo potentially, right? When Smith Rowe finally hits a blank. So good luck to you there, and hopefully I'll see you next week. And do message me on Discord as well, because I think you mentioned that you've been popping around. So that's nice. Darshan, thank you for the raid from FPL Focal. Focal has been amazing. Okay, the raid is absolutely huge. Thank you so much, FPL Focal. I actually spoke about you around 10 minutes ago. And I was just talking about how I find it really impressive that you were really forward thinking and making the kind of long form content in YouTube, where no one else is actually making these sorts of videos, especially when we're looking short term. Thank you guys so much for the raid, though. Honestly, it's been awesome seeing you grow from. I think honestly that at the start of the season we were both basically new channels making kind of fresh content, and it's been amazing seeing you grow through Reddit as well. I missed most of the raid. I'm so sorry. I hope Focal is watching this. I have spoken to Focal many times. If Focal remembers, I before he bench boosted and went straight to rank 2, I did actually private message him and say that he was gonna go all the way to the top, and he really did. I didn't really expect a YouTuber would ever hit rank 1, and that's amazing. Thoughts on number 1 FPL player and number 1 captain picker, Mod and Con, blatant picking City players as their captain. Mod and Con. I'm a bit confused there. When you say the number 1 FPL player, are you talking about Gangsters Alardis? Introduce myself to us. Well, okay, so my name is Francisco. I've been making a lot of football content for a while now. So if I kind of show you guys my old videos, back in the day, I used to make more kind of tactical videos. So if we go onto my channel, so back in the day, I used to make a lot of tactical videos around the Premier League and also some of the Champions League games. And I kind of got my first big break around the Euros when I was kind of covering the fantasy Euro game. But I used to make a lot of random videos, so like podcasts on football where I talk with my kind of really, really good friend Mehdi on football. We'd also make a lot of kind of tactical analysis on games in the Premier League. So I've always been watching the Premier League, but FPL is something that is still rather new to me. This is my second season of FPL, my first season of FPL where I've been kind of using social media and following kind of sources and things like that. But as you can see, a lot of kind of generic videos with podcasts as well. And then we suddenly got a big break with some of the Euro content that people really liked. And then it was a little bit of a slow start with FPL, but it's consistently grown. And here we are, really. Focal Army, thank you guys so much. It's been amazing to see Focal. And I think Focal is so close to 100K with the kind of videos that he's made. If you guys want to have a look at my team, I can tell you guys my team. It's Dennis captaincy, it's King second, and then it's going to be Antonio on the bench. So I know you guys might be a little bit upset about that. But Gray is someone who's still on my bench second as well. Reguilon third bench. Sanchez as my substitute keeper, and then De Gea as my starting keeper. My backline is Laporte. It's Cancelo and Trent, and also Cody, who I'm playing instead of Antonio. A little bit of a gamble where Cody has a lower ceiling, but Antonio for me just doesn't really cut it for this week versus United. And in terms of the midfield, I've actually got 10 million in the bank, so I can go straight into Salah next week, so I can move Gray away. And who are my other midfielders? It's Madison, Rafinha, and someone else. Jota, of course, who we all have. Focal member. You guys took a punt of João Pedro. I think João Pedro is a great pick. I mean, he is the most informed player, but I guess the question mark with Pedro is always, what do you want to do him with the kind of bench? Yeah, if you guys could drop a like and subscribe, that'd be really, really appreciated. Thank you so much. And thank you to Focal as well for all the kind of great content and also supporting someone like me this week. Moderator and contributor equals mods and cons. And yes, the other is the number 1 FPL player. Blatant FPL is the one. I don't really follow the moderators and contributors of FPL. I guess you're talking about people who actually run FPL, I imagine, and then people who are contributors to their kind of weekly content within the Premier League, right? Is Salah surely going to be back in Gameweek 24? So if we look at the AFCON dates together, if you look at the schedule, I believe he should be, right? So the AFCON final is scheduled to be 6th of February, and I'm going to go on a bender here and say that Egypt probably don't make it to the final. But even if it's the 6th of February, let's have a look back at the FPL deadline. So or rather, let's have a look at Game Week 24. So we know that Game Week 24 is going to be 8th of February. So Salah will actually be back in time, and Liverpool actually have a game on the 10th of Feb. So even if, let's say, Salah makes it all the way to the final, plays that game, he still has a chance of making it back versus Leicester. But I think there's a high chance he doesn't make it to the final, unfortunately, because I don't think Egypt are one of the strongest African teams, even though a lot of the kind of AFCON kind of happenings have been distorted with a top team like Algeria being knocked out. But yeah, I mean, Liverpool could easily make it back, or Salah rather can easily make it back by Leicester, and he should be there for Game Week 24. So I think everyone having plans around Salah is nice. Tell it 10 million in my bank. Yeah, I mean, my future is going to be Salah, so it makes sense, doesn't it? How did I learn to make FPL videos? To be honest, I was just kind of looking at learning how to use the Adobe suite and started making videos around that. You captain KDB, or do you mean you captain KDB? I hope the KDB captain works out for you. I think that it's, of course, a great great pick for this week. It was one of the options I was picking for before the kind of Watford double game week was kind of put on the plate. Just subscribe. Good luck, pal. Following FPL Focal, FPL Mate. Let's talk FPL, FPL Raptor. Awesome. Thank you so much, Brett. And Michael, thank you as well. Did Kane to Pedro, cash and bank for Salah and free? I mean, that's I think that's the logical move. Egypt is getting knocked out, potentially. You captain Dennis, so you're in the same boat as me. I captain Dennis as well. Do I think Ivory Coast will beat Egypt? I think likely yes. My overall rank right now is around 75k. All the best with the channel. Thank you so much, Michael John. Keith Rowley says, Man United double cancels out getting Salah now. Right, so I mean, obviously the plan could still be to maybe go for Fernandes potentially, if there is going to be a double. I thought the Man United double was going to be on 25, and Liverpool also still have a chance of getting a double themselves. JD Cochran, you track top 50 mods and cons in the cheat sheet. Would love to add you into the mix. Yeah, that's totally fine. Thank you very much. Thoughts on Richarlison, Everton's fixtures. So the one thing with Everton is when you have a new manager coming in, I think it's worth to actually watch the full 90 minutes of the game and have a look at how they play versus Aston Villa, because first of all, we have to be dealing with several things. So they have really good games such as Newcastle coming up soon, but the question is going to be how Richarlison is going to be utilized in the system. And for all we know, it could be quite a bad week where, let's probably skip that tweet, a little bit offensive. Dennis can't cap gang, that's me. But yeah, as I was saying about DCL, sorry, you kind of want to see what the manager is, or actually Richarlison, sorry, was the question. You kind of want to see what kind of tactical structure the manager plays. I think a lot of people have been trying to play within a 4-4-2. We did see Carlo Ancelotti try to play a 4-3-3, where basically Richarlison was like a false left inside winger. And it really depends on the system and how they fry, because, you know, missing Luca Dean, that's going to be a huge hampering, because I thought that Richarlison played some of his best football when Luca Dean was much more offensive and kind of combining with him on the left flank, where Luca Dean would move into playing a left winger, and then someone like Richarlison would actually move into a forward position, so that when they actually attacked, it would almost look like a 4-4-2, where Luca Dean would be the winger. And right now, we have no real idea what the kind of caretaker manager will do, and then we have no idea who will actually replace the caretaker manager if he at all gets replaced. So that's going to be a weird situation there. Overall rank is around 75k right now. Egypt got to lose next round. I mean, that's going to be sad for Egypt and obviously sad for Egyptian fans. I'm not going to say that's certain for sure. I mean, we've already seen some crazy things with AFCON this year with some major upsets. Bruno without Ronaldo tonight is going to haul major. Very potentially, Dennis. I think so. You've had Madison for some time, saved your game week plenty of times in mini league. Yeah, I mean, Madison, I think FPL Mate was actually one of the first players this season who actually went for Madison, and he did extremely well. So congrats to him as well, because he got a lot of differential points from Madison before Madison's ownership skyrocketed to even some of the double-digit percentages. So that was a very good play from him. Haven't seen any Everton games. How's DCL on the eye test? I mean, it's tough to say, right, Savio, because we've only seen him play 2 games. He looked a bit quiet. Obviously, missed a pen versus Brighton. I would say that he's a player who still looks like he's working towards getting his best kind of match fitness, and that's going to be a tough situation. You've been kind of looking forward to take Bruno Fernandes in Game Week 25 in the hopes of Man United getting a double game week. Yeah, so I think what FPL Focal did tweet that, and even Ben Krellin also did kind of insinuate that there will be a Game Week 25 with United. And to be fair, Bruno is a very interesting shout that kind of week. So we'll see what happens there. Outside Castle, you went for Watkins over Richarlison at the end. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think it seems like you are kind of siding with the effective ownership, but I would say Watkins is interesting because he's still, on an underlying stats point of view, is the kind of statistical kind of expected goal involvement leader for an Aston Villa team who could have double game weeks. And there's much more kind of, I think, reward and safety, right, with going with a Gerrard-backed team, a team that's already done quite well this season, capable of scoring goals, even versus some of the tougher teams such as City. So that is the best situation, I think, going for Watkins this week, as opposed to Richarlison, who could be a big kind of diamond. For me, he still is a diamond in the rough. I don't think Richarlison has improved too much year on year. Unfortunately, he's been hit with a lot of injuries and played a lot of football. I think last year he was one of the top 3 or 4 or 5 footballers in the world playing with the most amount of games, because if you remember, he was also playing in the Olympics. So yeah, it really comes down to, I think, going for the safer, much more solid play. And we know, at least now, that Aston Villa have a lot of creative players. Jacob Ramsey is much more technical, I would say, and much more direct, but players like Coutinho and Buendia should be able to give Watkins much more better chances in much more easier games. And when we look at the forwards, simply put, I think Aston Villa have better games than Everton. Just when we look at the kind of strength of their teams. 16 Milk, thank you so much as well. Really appreciate that. I know it's way too late, but do you mind checking DM? Absolutely, Jerome. Are you Jerome on Twitter? I'll try to respond to everyone as soon as possible on PMs. But I don't know if I've missed. Can I see your name, Jerome? Maybe if you like kind of ping a message towards me, and then I can actually see a message, or is it on my message requests? Oh, Jerome, here you are. You got no idea what to do now. You don't even want the Watford attackers, and you have the wrong goalkeeper. Did you end up rolling? So you got Gray in the midfield, Dallo. So I wouldn't necessarily have had Dallo in the back of my bench, but I think honestly your team is very solid. And my worry, I guess, is Calvert-Lewin could still have a good game versus Aston Villa. He's done it tremendously well versus, with maybe all three of his managers so far. He's done well under Benitez, even though that was only kind of 3 goals in 5 games. He did very well versus under Ancelotti, and he did very well under Duncan as well, or his 3 latest managers. You did roll. So I guess we can talk about your Game Week 24 plans. So a lot of things are going to be in the mix, right? We kind of need to take consideration of whether United have a double. Even Liverpool have a chance of having a double. I believe Ben Crellin keeps talking about the potential of Liverpool having a double game week with the Leeds game being kind of rescheduled with the Norwich fixture. So we'll see what happens there. I guess when I'm looking at your team, I probably don't want to have a double Spurs. Maybe Reguilon can be upgraded into someone like Laporte. Dallo is in second bench. Yeah, I agree with that. Makes sense. It'll be interesting. I hope the best for you with Watkins and Calvert-Lewin. It's going to be tough dealing with the Dennis and King players. I myself have Captain Dennis, so we'll see what happens. Next week, plans are great to Salah. So yeah, absolutely same as mine, and I could see that as well. I'm just saying that maybe we might have to make a little bit of consideration for whether United have potential double game weeks as well, where Bruno might kind of stink things up for us. But there's also the option of going for someone like a Greenwood too. People went for KDB instead of King. Thoughts? Honestly, I think that's a very solid move. KDB was one of my options for my team selection transfers. So, yeah. My rank is 75k, as in like 75,000. Went for KDB instead of King. Yep, sorry, I did just read that, and that's true. Legendary. What's my Twitter? It's actually Total Tactics FPL. I will be checking everyone's DMs. Don't worry, guys. I'll try and make sure. Shaw is still injured. Yeah, that's news about Ronaldo just dropped from United. What do you mean by he's dropped from United? So I think this was the news, 3 hours ago. Ronaldo will look to leave if they don't qualify for Champions League, which is actually quite a high chance. Who do you guys actually think will finish 4th this season? Do you guys think it's Arsenal, Spurs? Do you think it's Man United still, who would actually finally make that cut? So Spurs are obviously in kind of pole position right now for securing, I would say, 4th, especially with their kind of games in hand, or even West Ham as well. Sorry, I mean they've had such a fantastic season. It's a little bit poor of me to dismiss them like that. But we all know the teams below them have at least 1 or even 2 games in hand, or even 3 in the case of Tottenham. No talk about CR7. Yeah, it doesn't seem true. I think Ronaldo might have a neck injury, but we don't know what's going on. Do you mind laying out the ideal chip strategy going forward, assuming only one wild card is used so far? That's a good question. Okay, let's actually turn that nail on its head, and let's go to Ben Crellin the absolute god of timetabling here. And let's have a look at his kind of sheet. I hope you guys can actually see this. Let me see if it makes sense. All right, I'm gonna have to zoom out a little bit out of this so you guys can see it in its full glory. Yeah, I hope this works actually. So this is Ben Crellin's kind of calendar, right, where he is looking at the potential games in the near future. What he's basically suggesting is that week 30 is a huge blank. That's not really a problem because most of the teams very likely will blank, with the exception to maybe Arsenal and Aston Villa. We also have a potential light blank as well on 33. But in reality, I think if you're wildcarding and you have... I want to know what kind of chips you have left, because 24, 25, 27 have some blanks. So Chelsea and Arsenal will probably be the two teams that blank. That's not necessarily a huge miss because I think a lot of us have already moved away from Chelsea and Arsenal players, with the exception to maybe having Ramsdale in our goalkeeper position. So what we're talking about with double game weeks is that we know that there's going to be a big fat double game week on 36. And what a lot of people like to do around 36 is maybe put a wild card around this week. So the idea is you set yourself up in the best possible way to hit a very kind of good end of the season high, and potentially 37 and 38 could have doubles as well. So you would maybe set yourself up with the classic combination of a wild card and a bench boost around that time. If that doesn't seem to be something that happens and we have these kind of small scattered double game weeks, then I think it makes a lot of sense to potentially wildcard as soon as possible, maybe after, let's say, the 27 blank, because the 27 blank is quite crucial for several things. It's a great opportunity to get back into all these Chelsea players. It's a great opportunity to get back into all these Arsenal players. And we know that both Chelsea and Arsenal, even though I think Chelsea have maybe fallen a little bit short of expectations in terms of their title challenge, Arsenal, on the other hand, have been fantastic this year from both an attacking and defensive point of view. So that is a good time to maybe wildcard and actually change your team up very drastically from some of the players. Maybe kind of go a little bit ahead of the curve and actually bank on these Chelsea and Arsenal players whilst people are still struggling to kind of get back into them, and kind of run all the way through into 36, playing your final 3 hit around 36 where we know there's a double game week. By the way, this is the cheat sheet basically with Ben Crellin's structure here is the way the calendar fixtures work. So anything that's yellow here is going to be a double game week. We know, for example, here in 23 we have Watford and Burnley. There are potentially going to be future doubles, as I say, though, it's still in 24, 25, and 27. So for me, whenever you wildcard, I don't think there's an optimal strategy. It's always about how many problems you have in your team. And I think that if you have, let's say, 5 or 6 problems in your team, then that's always a good time to wildcard. Otherwise, if you really don't think, or you don't really foresee yourself having problems, such as, let's say, when a massive pandemic hits, or at least another virus strain has come out and is kind of affecting the world with a lot of postponements, then I think you can navigate quite safely by attacking an early wildcard, maybe after 27, and maybe capitalizing on some very good fixtures that Arsenal have in a row there. Maybe attacking Arsenal in that kind of manner, maybe playing your bench boost sometime between 24, 25, and 27, and then having a natural kind of wildcard here with the 3 hit at 36 to target that game. But it's really up to you. I don't really think there's any kind of chip structure set in stone, and that's I think the lesson that we've learned this season. For example, if you look at FPL Focal, who played his bench boost very early, most people don't recommend playing your bench boost at all early. And for me last week, if I played my bench boost, I would have had a relatively good week. Let me have a look at what my prospective points would have been. So I'm just going to quickly resize this tab again. I can't actually show you guys my team, but I had Rafinha, who I believe was on 7 points, or maybe 6. Cody, who was on, I think, 9 points, so 15 points there. Sanchez got 4 points, so 19. And then I think Reguilon just got 2 points, so 21 points really, which would have been my bench boost last week. But as I said on Twitter as well last week, we're going to have a lot of double game weeks coming ahead, so I think saving your bench boost for where there's going to be more doubles is optimal. And I think we have to live with the fact that the rest of the season will have a lot of weeks where we're going to look at our bench and think that we're stupid, right? Because we've left so many points on the bench. But I think that's totally fine. I think Liverpool, if they ever have a double, that's a good week to kind of play either your triple captaincy chip or your bench boost, because we know Salah's coming back by 24. So those are the kind of chip strategies I'd play around. But as I said, everyone has different chips used. They might be in different positions. Their team might be in different positions. So there's never really an optimal strategy. I don't really kind of subscribe to that logic in FPL. However, I think Ben Crellin constantly kind of updates his fixture list as well. So making sure you stay up to track with that and making sure that you actually make the right move for your team is, for me, the optimum chip strategy. I don't think trying to play around specific game weeks when game weeks are so dynamic. So for example, last week I had a deliberate kind of intention to play a bench boost, and with the amount of cancellations that I knew were going to come out of them, I deliberately kind of took that off the table. And that's the kind of decision making, unfortunately, we have to be engaged in, with the postponements and those kind of things playing a big part. Ronaldo is not going to Bayern. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think Bayern actually like to kind of kill their wage structure. And not to mention, Foster's not in goal? No way. All right. I think have you baited me, or is it on Twitter? Let's have a look. Someone sent me a link. Will Ronaldo play on Saturday? Probably Man United's actually what they wrote emerged as a doubt. This is on their own website. That's pretty interesting. Yeah, but I think it's the same kind of neck injury concern that it seemed like he had. All right, so this guy's a little bit in the mud. Let's throw him a like. If Foster's well and truly out. Paddy Kyo, Kayembe gang. Is anybody going Kayembe? Surely Game Week 36 bench boost. That could be a play as well. Check team news on Twitter. Let's have a look at Watford FC. And can I just say, for you Focal fans as well, like what a play to actually get basically the maximal amount of points of Foster on a bench boost, and then since then Foster has been absolutely dead in the mud. Okay, so it's like a leak situation, right? We can wait a few minutes and actually wait for the Watford full news to come out. Ronaldo and Mount to KDB and Daka. Fair enough. I guess you're taking advantage of the neck injury news, so that's cool. Ronaldo sue in Wimbledon is actually jokes, man. Players got no clue. They think they're getting booed. Isn't it in the Australian Open right now? I thought that's the ongoing tennis tournament. I'm a Rafael Nadal fan, so I think, yeah, I was watching the kind of press conference of like Nick Kyrgios and also Andy Murray, who like didn't really understand what was going on, so it was pretty funny. But I think the fans have been quite aggressive, and tennis usually has, or they try to be as sporting as possible, with fans usually being encouraged to be as respectful as possible. So yeah, the news are team news and ticks. I mean, we can wait 2 minutes. I think that's fine. If that's true, I'm going to be mad because you benched Bachmann. No way, Jerome. The thing is, though, like, what if Bachmann plays this game and then Foster plays the second game? So both owners kind of get mudded, don't they? Yeah, I think the one mistake I made this season, I've made 2 or 3 mistakes. Going for Kane was definitely a mistake. Going for Guaita mid-season was a mistake. I think I will never go too deeply into keepers in the near future. Anyways, guys, what are your weekend plans? I'm actually gonna quickly check a little bit of FIFA related content. I just want to see the team of the year stats. All right, have the cards been updated? Oh, right, because it's like a slow release, right? You go forwards, then midfielders, then defenders, right? Fair enough. Yeah, I'm definitely affording this Mbappe card, no problem. Harry Kane. Oh, so they finally made a good Harry Kane card, but he still has 3-star skills. So would I ever really want to play with this card? Probably not. I mean, he looks more like a cam, doesn't he? He's got really, really elite passing. Maybe you just like slap an engine on him and you play him as a kind of cam, and that could be quite interesting too. I would like to see like how smooth his dribbling is. Because Harry Kane obviously has a unique body type, but at his kind of height and stature, he always feels super weird in FIFA. Would you play this guy as a box-to-box centre mid? Probably not. What if I slapped a shadow on him? It looks silly. All right, let's go back to the Watford news. Oh, this is Watford, Brazil. My bad. Yikes. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry, guys. A moment of silence for the Foster players. But actually, what's the worst case scenario? Like, do you guys all have a second keeper? I'm so sorry. Oh man. Say you started Foster for the double game week and Bachmann plays the first game and Foster for the second. Doesn't my reserve goalkeeper come on after Foster misses the first? No, Savio, because basically Foster has to miss both games for you to actually get your your reserve goalkeeper to come in. Foster subbed on at the 60th minute. I mean, yeah, if Bachmann potentially has an injury, then you could do that. You glad you ended up starting Ramsdale? Honestly, that's a chess move. That's a chess move right there, Mal. I think you've actually you've rinsed us. You've rinsed us good. Uh, David De Gea is the second keeper. I think that's totally fine as well. If Foster's out because of illness, are you joking? So basically, Foster can come back for the next game, and he could mud you on the second way. You think KDB was robbed on the team of the year? Do you mean like his overall stats were a bit too low, like his overall rating? Captain KDB or King? Who is the best for this game week? I would probably say King, but I'm probably gonna be wrong, and it's probably gonna be KDB. So we'll see what happens. What's your Twitter message now? I'll have a look. I do play FIFA. I can show you my ultimate team very quickly. Travis, what's your Twitter username? You're bench boosting with David De Gea, Ronaldo, Antonio Reguilon. Nice. Unreal. Bench Bachmann for no reason. I mean, it was hard, right? It seems like, I mean, Jerome, I think you made the right decision because we didn't really have any kind of idea that Foster would be out. So, I think you made the right move in terms of the making the right kind of logical decisions, right? And taking the right kind of logical thinking towards benching Bachmann. Because if Foster's out because of illness, you had no idea to really anticipate that, unless you have some kind of Watford in the know sources. Knee jerked a -8, thinking now KDB to Salah in Gaming 24. Dawson to Diaz or Gray to Rafinha rolled the free transfer. This team's a weird one. I think I would have made the transfer. All right. Well, we've actually, I'll continue to respond some of these Twitter kind of questions in the near future. Hopefully, for the sake of all of us, that we actually get some big benefits from having both Dennis and King. We'll see what happens there. Do I play pro clubs? Not right now, actually, but Sinku, you brought in Foster for a hit. I hope, hopefully, that you can get Foster for the second game, and hopefully he does well. But keeper transfers is not really worth it. Team of the year is a joke. How do you not have Salah on Team of the Year? Felipe, I mean, you're kind of right. To be honest, I would also say that it's a joke that Benzema is not on Team of the Year, but that's just my personal opinion. I think this year, I would say that there's probably 4 or 5 good forwards, and I would have rather, like FIFA maybe did a 4-2-4 formation, something like that. Can I show my team again? I can't show you my team. I can tell you what my team is. So this was my last week's team. The only change that I've really made is that I've taken Calvert-Lewin out for King. The captaincy is still the same. Antonio goes on my bench. Rafinha comes and plays. Cody comes and plays. And then that's how I'm playing. I'm playing a 4. What am I playing? I'm playing a 4-4-2, I think. Wait. Yeah, 4-4-2. So Gray second bench as well at this point in time, where Gray is the money in the bank that I should be using to go into Salah, is the play that I've made. So this is kind of my team as it stands. Oh, sorry, it's a little bit clipped out. My bad. Sorry, guys. So this is my team. But as I said, yeah, the transfers that I made were to go out of DCL and to go into King. Double up on Watford, benefit from the Dennis captaincy, Antonio first bench, Rafinha comes in, Gray second bench, Reguilon still third bench, and then Cancelo and Laporte playing alongside Cody, who gets to play versus Brentford. So last week, how much points did I leave on the bench last week? 15. I left 20 points on the bench last week. Pretty impressive, Francisco. Well done. Another year where I leave points on the bench. Can you imagine that last year I like the FPL usually sends you like an annual roundup, right? And my bench boost was literally something like 4 to 7 points, like one of the worst bench boosts maybe of all time. And somehow at the end of the season, my average points left on the bench was like 30 or 40% higher than most FPL players. So not only am I bad at bench boosting, I'm also bad at just choosing who to bench on a weekly basis. So here we are. But yeah. Don't sleep on Coutinho. No, I mean, DVD, you're completely right. I actually wanted to go for Coutinho before the Watford double game week was announced. Your wife likes my spectacles. I actually have another pair, but they make me look, a little bit like a prat. So we'll see. Mbappe team of the year is fraud, not gonna lie. They didn't even win the league. Fair play. I think he had a decent UCL run, but yeah, I would say that if someone was to give way, I would probably go for a team of the year that had Benzema, Salah, Messi, and Lewandowski, right? A front 4, and then a midfield 2. Maybe like, yeah, okay, we give credit to the year that Chelsea had, the year that Jorginho had as well. Maybe you play Jorginho. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure if Kante deserved it, but at the same time, I don't think many midfielders did. I'm a big fan of Casemiro, of course, as a Real Madrid fan, but maybe I won't step on that too much. KDB also missed a large portion of the year due to injury, but Kante had a really, really good Champions League run. So if you really want to go Kante, Jorginho, fair enough. That's the midfield that you want to go for, I guess. That's fine. And then the back line. I think the back line's actually good. The way it stands, I wouldn't necessarily. Maybe Theo Hernandez had a good year as well, playing at left back, but with the exception to him, I think it was a pretty fair kind of selection. I don't know how you guys thought. Even Kimmich is, I mean, a really great football player. My favorite football club is actually Real Madrid. My family's based, or at least my dad's side of the family is based in Madrid. But sorry, DVD. Just talk about Coutinho. He was actually on my. If you watch my team selection video, he was actually my first priority transfer. But I kind of changed my mind due to the Watford news. Vinicius Jr. better than Mbappe last year. Well, the thing is, Vinicius Jr. has been good for this season, but I think Team of the Year is actually looking at like 2021, right? So when you look at 2021, Mbappe definitely had a better year than Vinicius. But right now, I mean, at this point in time, I think Vinicius is almost like a top 5, 6. I think Vinicius's form is at least putting him as a top 5 to 6 football player in the world. Maybe I'm once again wrong, but we'll see what happens. You think Courtois and Modric not being there is a scam? I think Courtois is one of the most underrated goalkeepers, but I agree. I think Savio has the best take on this. Team of the Year is a waste of a time, for sure. The official Team of the Year is as valid as yours or mine. I agree. Theo's a beast. Forza Milan. I actually have a signed. I have a signed Kaká T-shirt back home in Hong Kong, where my parents live. I have a signed Kaká T-shirt. I also have a signed T-shirt from the Real Madrid Galacticos team. Yeah, Donnarumma being the keeper of the year for what, like his Euros performance. It's quite a joke. I also have a picture of myself with Beckham, Zidane, Raul, Roberto Carlos, Figo, and a couple other players. I'm a Hong Konger, yeah. I do live in London. You thought you saw someone like me the other day. I do live in London, but I doubt you saw me because I haven't been out of the house much. You live in Discovery Bay? Honestly, Henry, when I go back to Hong Kong and there isn't a 21-day quarantine, I'd be happy to hang out with you. Don't ever let that signed Kaká shirt go. I won't, obviously not. But yeah, I also have a signed like T-shirt with all the Galacticos players from Madrid. I'll probably feature on the next I'll feature on the next video, guys. Let me see if I can actually find the photo on my phone. Hopefully I can. I was very young at the time, so this was when they kind of did their Asian, like Asia World Tour to Hong Kong. So we'll see if I can find it. This is a new phone, so I'm not sure if I have it. I'm gonna probably have to ask my dad for the photo. Yeah, I'm not sure if. Oh, actually, I have it. Do you guys want me to show it? So this was me as a kid. I don't know if you guys can see. So this was me as a kid. The green screen is a little bit messed up. So this is me as a kid. Actually, let me send this photo to myself, and I can actually share it with you guys in a much more appropriate way. Give me a sec. Sending emails to myself in 2022. Impressive. All right, let's have a look. I hope you guys can see this. Let me know if you can. So this is the photo of me. My favorite football club is Real Madrid. All right, let me try and resize that a little bit better for you guys. Oops, my bad. So this is me, like as one of the young kids here, and then obviously we've got all the big players. Guti here, Figo, Roberto Carlos, Raul. I think Beckham was like he wasn't in this photo, but he was still at the event. So I have a signed ball, and then this is my dad as well. So yeah, pretty cool event where I got to see most of the kind of Madrid legends. And yeah, it was a nice time, but unfortunately I was too young to actually remember, like to recognize like how cool that was. But yeah, that's a little bit of a tidbit on my I guess football fandom from when I was young. Let's see if my team has actually loaded an FPL. Doesn't seem like it has, unfortunately. Yeah, it was pretty awesome. Zidane in the back, yeah, of course. Sorry. I mean, how can I not mention Zidane, who was actually my My favorite football player ever, Cliff Buckley. Figo is such a snake. I mean, I would actually encourage watching the video that Tifo Football actually made about the transfer of Luis Figo to Real Madrid. So yeah, I would definitely recommend checking that out. The video is really awesome because it kind of details the story about how Florentino Perez won the surprise election to become the president of Real Madrid, and then yeah, found his way towards becoming an absolute club legend almost 2 decades later. Dennis EO live in FPL, yeah, that would be pretty awesome. However, I captained Dennis last week and it was pretty dismaying if I must be honest. Yeah, I think Coutinho is definitely going to be on our radars for sure. You went for Luton, Alonso third. I mean, has he been that bad? I feel like I've been actually losing points because of Alonso the last few weeks because he just somehow flukes, like he flukes clean sheets, flukes assists. Like it's impressive what he's been able to do. Oh, right, sorry. Thank you so much for taking the screenshot of my team. So yeah, this is my FPL team. Really kind of you. Thanks, Silent Fusion. You're Cap King. Awesome. Good thing that you rolled that baby. Yeah, I was quite shocked to see the bench boost because it's a lot of singles, right? Fingers crossed. You did do Dawson to Diaz. Not sure where Foster is, but let's hope he's not back for Burnley and I get De Gea back in. That seems like everyone's kind of genuine opinion. Dennis is a fraud. It was a disaster. Yeah, he did fraud out on us last week. It was a bit unfortunate. Krul is also injured in gun plays. He has conceded 11 in the last 3 matches. No pressure. You went from 5k to 14k last week. Hope for a big rank boost. All the same for you, Mal. Big flex. Legendary. Foster got COVID. Hopefully he doesn't play the second game. Yeah, I mean, I think it probably means that Bachmann plays the second game too, because if you've got COVID, you're probably not training. So that could be a big kind of hamper on whether he's... You've captained the cycling GK. You've got faith. Oh, man, I hope Foster has the game of his life. And he actually plays next week as well. Oh, what about my favorite Premier League club? I don't actually have one now. A really good friend of mine, Mehdi, who used to run the channel with me, is a fan of Arsenal. So I kind of have a small allegiance to Arsenal. But when it came down to it, like in terms of football and what I really enjoyed watching, I really enjoyed Jose Mourinho's Chelsea. So that kind of team with Lampard, Drogba, John Terry, Carvalho, yeah, players like that. DVD, didn't see him, didn't recognize him. I didn't see what you wrote, DVD, because the message is retracted. You don't like that transfer? He was a Kule. Man, Henry, how can you say that? Honestly, Figo ended up being an absolute legend for Real Madrid. And I think since then, he's always been a part of our kind of legendary events. So I think Figo is an absolute legend at the club. So I've got no issues with Luis Figo. And honestly, isn't it a Chad move that Florentino Perez brought a Barcelona player who was a world-class player, brought him to Real Madrid? Are you not a fan of that? I'm actually quite a big fan of that. You wouldn't do it again. I mean, I wouldn't mind taking, let's see, who would you take from Barcelona right now? And kind of, I would like to get Pedri, you know, just to inject a little bit of maybe midfield kind of backup in the future. FPL site is back. Let's have a look. Okay, this is my team, guys. Let's go. Oh, it's not. Is it refreshed? Well, anyways, this is my team for the current week, so we'll see how it goes. Antonio on bench is going to be a little bit scary. Come on, you Gunners. Nice. Hate Chelsea, but Mourinho's first Chelsea side were an absolute tank. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like that, they were so interesting because it's like, it's the perfect Mourinho team. You've got a lot of workhorses. You have players who are very creatively gifted, but also physical workhorses like Lampard, and also like Drogba. Like, what a player! Oh yeah, by the way, my bench boost took me from 100k to 42k. That's awesome, Silent Fusion. Real need to give Camavinga more minutes. I think the thing with a lot of players who join Real Madrid is that you understand that you'll be on the bench for a while. So for example, let's say you look at a player like Benzema. He had to compete a lot, right, alongside Higuain and even Raul at some point in time. And it took him a while to actually find his place in the team. And I think with youngsters, as long as you're training with good players, it's almost like the Foden effect, where Foden on paper was gifted enough to actually play for City, I think, for the last 2-3 years, but his minutes have only slowly and kind of consistently gone up, especially this year, where, with exception to when he was naughty and things like that. Yeah, you can join my league. I forgot to share the kind of league. I'll keep that kind of added in the future team selection videos. But here's the code to join the league. If you want to join. You hate yeah, okay. FPL site is live. Figo is like RVP at United. I mean, I would say it's a little bit different because at the time I think that Arsenal team wasn't really winning much, and I think Van Persie deliberately went to win something, and he did. Refresh my browser. It's back. Yep, I did refresh my browser. Valverde first before Camavinga. Agree. Don't want Kama to do a Kova. Yeah, that was the tough thing, wasn't it? Like right now when I'm watching, like I watched Chelsea versus Liverpool live. I can probably share you guys another photo as well of it. But it was amazing to actually watch that game. But Kovacic, like the way he dominated the game, and not only obviously that beautiful kind of screamer that he scored, but the amount of control he had in the game. It was a bit sad thinking about the days when he was a very solid kind of asset towards the Real Madrid team, but I completely understand why he needed the minutes. Yeah, I mean, Makelele, of course, was another legendary player at Madrid. I don't know if you ever, do you guys remember that kind of famous Zidane quote about Makelele, about how you can't, I think, what was it? You can't like have a Ferrari without an engine or something. True. Llorente wasn't so painful a sell for me because I think that's more of a hindsight transfer, right? Because at the time, Llorente was played as a defensive mid. We didn't know he was basically a beautiful box-to-box player, or even right now where he's basically played as like almost like a half right wing back, half right mid for Atleti. So I feel like we just didn't scout or understand how good Llorente could be, and that of course was a big miss. But Atleti have been pretty poor this season, so that's been nice to see. You always supported every team Brazilian Ronaldo played. Some players you enjoy watching. Also Zidane, of course. Yeah, Mohamed, I agree. I think so. In football, a lot of people have this kind of maybe a little bit more archaic view of you have to support a specific club. And I can completely understand coming from a background where I didn't have any local team to support coming from Hong Kong, that you want to follow specific players, and I can completely understand why people do that. And I'm sure you wouldn't have missed out on much by watching the Brazilian Ronaldo and Zidane, of course. I always love watching their highlight videos. And unfortunately, of course, they both played for Madrid. Would Madrid benefit from Ferran Torres' backup start since Asensio's injury prone? I mean, yeah, but Ferran Torres now plays for Barcelona, so it's very tough. I was quite sad when Ferran Torres transferred from Valencia because I thought that both Real Madrid and Barcelona had weaknesses in the right wing position, and we somehow gave him away to Man City for 28 million, who, yeah, it didn't make sense at the time because we were lacking right wingers. To be fair, I mean, signing, I think Messi is quite a considerably higher legend in terms of the like echelons of Barcelona kind of fame, but definitely, yeah, it was a massive transfer that kind of shook the world, and like everyone remembers the image of the pig's head. Nolan, yeah, absolutely. Why put another layer of gold paint on the Bentley when you're losing the entire engine? Yeah, sorry. I mean, I pretty much destroyed that quote, but very aptly put by Zidane there. Our managers are scared to rotate because their job. The thing is, Carlo Ancelotti has always been scared to rotate as a manager, and it's very frustrating because I don't know if you remember the season where we kind of followed up from winning the Champions League, and he kind of got sacked. He basically overplayed Cruz and things like that. Me meeting those players is similar to kids meeting PSG right now. I mean, absolutely, PSG's stacked from top to bottom, really. You don't know why Real sold Hakimi. I would agree. I think at the time people thought that Hakimi would only be restricted to being part of a back five. Apparently the rumors are that yeah, but we overplayed Modric and Cruz, right, in 14-15. Don't you think so, Henry? My football knowledge is pretty immense. Not really. I would say, I mean, I'm a big football fan, and I'm really interested in narratives and things like that in sports. So you'll find myself kind of I'm happy to talk about even basketball or even tennis. But yeah, I mean, football is a sport I've put a lot of time into, even mixed martial arts as well. Dennis EO 109%. Well, I'm glad I have a little bit of a 91% gain. Maybe if live FPL is live. Let's have a look, guys. Share that with you guys. Here's my team for the week, effective ownership wise. Cody 1.85%, massive. Look at me putting Antonio on the bench. Is it going to be a Chad move or going to be a stupid move? We'll see. Cancelo and Trent basically giving us absolutely nothing this week. De Gea might give us a little bit of something. Laporte, that's going to be massive once again. Madison, something. It's crazy to think that Jota, Bowen, Trent, Cancelo, like those players literally give you absolutely nothing right now in the top 10k. And everyone in the top 10k is deep into King and Dennis. So I guess I benefit if King does well. Hopefully his OR percent in the... I think that more people in the top 10k actually have King than Dennis compared to the rest of the player population. So that will be interesting to see how my effective ownership changes. But as we can see now, we're moving into a phase of the game where Trent, Cancelo, Jota, Bowen, and even this week, particularly with King and Dennis, I mean, we're basically not earning any points on them unless we actually captain them. Your meets and greets would bang considering the vibe here. I think the vibes are great actually for this channel. So his son himself said Carlo should do better at subs. I agree. I mean, Carlo needs to have some faith in some of the younger players. We just kind of got ourselves saved by Isco and Hazard. You've got to use those players. I agree with you, Sahaj. So I think definitely we can do a few more live streams as much as possible. If you don't mind popping up on Discord, maybe kind of discussing that with me, I'd be happy to talk about that. Just like maybe just to get a feel for how you would like the meets and greets to go, because I'm not too kind of well acquainted with how some other FPL YouTubers might have been kind of going for meets and greets, but that would be something I'm definitely interested in. What website is that? It's actually Live FPL. So Luke Evans, if you type livefpl.net, that would be it. Livefpl.net. Do you think Pogba will leave United? I think so, right? I mean, he's barely played for them over his tenure there. He costs a tremendous amount of money. I can't imagine them renewing. And well, we still don't know exactly what system or what role he'll play under Mr. Rangnick, but we'll see what happens. Do I watch the UFC? Yes, I do. I actually watch the UFC much less than I used to. I used to follow a lot of the UFC during the kind of peak Conor McGregor era and a little bit before that. So, yeah. But I think I stopped watching maybe when Francis Ngannou had beat Stipe the second time. So, NFL playoffs are lit right now. Don't hate the sport, just hate the name. Unfortunately, I don't watch much of the NFL. I watch mostly NBA, tennis, and football as my like kind of top 3 sports right now. Yeah, and tennis I mostly because I just religiously follow Rafael Nadal. I also play a lot of games as well, actually. So if you count esports, then I play a lot of Valorant. Used to play a lot of League, and then even further than that, I used to play a lot of StarCraft, StarCraft 2. But a lot of people in our Discord are avid, gamers as well, like Football Manager players, FIFA players, all those sorts of things. So feel free to come over to our Discord and pop on over. I'll definitely advertise that for sure. Someone on our Discord actually Captain Kayembe as well. So big shout out to Jack, who's basically one of the craziest guys. Do you think Watford will win today? Let's go Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Nice. I can't say that really. I don't think you play Valorant but Middle East servers. So do you think I can play with you if you're on the Bahrain server, Magic Master Tricks? Because I imagine that's the Bahrain server is a server that I have access to. I think I'm siding with Cyril. I don't know how you feel about that, Lasitha. I mean, Francis is an absolute demon, but I think these are some of the scariest heavyweights we've ever seen because they move so well and they hit so hard. Gane obviously is much more technical, I guess. But then Ngannou's sheer power is something I've really never seen in professional fighting. I guess if you could compare him, he's almost like as if the Bronze Bomber was much more well sized, for his kind of heavyweight. The year Burnley get finally relegated. Are you really happy about that, Sahaj? I think that honestly, Sean Dyche has done a fantastic job. It's annoying to watch Burnley. I don't love watching Burnley. They're hard to watch, but Sean Dyche has, for me, done an absolutely mental job, considering the lack of kind of financial freedom that Burnley has as a team. Also, I'm gonna quickly just message FPL Focal for the raid, because what a nice guy. Where can I find him? Do I have to type his full name? How does it work? FPL Focal. What site is that on my screen? Are we talking about live FPL? Livefpl.net? If that's what you're talking about. Just interested as well, like what other kind of content are you guys interested in looking from my channel? If I was, so right now I'm just in a kind of very busy period at work. So I would be interested in kind of knowing what you guys are looking forward to in terms of content beyond the cheat sheet and beyond the kind of team selection videos that we usually do. You have both Dennis and King as your two forwards, and you captain King. Hope this pays off. Absolutely, I hope it pays off for you as well. Do you think there will be a big dunk effect with Everton? I mean, it'll be interesting, right? Because I think DCL actually played extremely well under Dunk. I thought that was when he actually transformed himself, to be honest, as a player. So we'll see what happens there. They just won't take the next step and just drag themselves to safety. They need to take one step back, two steps forward. The thing is, though, I feel like Burnley just doesn't have investment, right? So I can't see why taking one step back would send them two steps forward in the future. FIFA career mode game. No, I play FIFA Ultimate Team. I think FIFA career mode is one of the worst game types I've ever seen in my life, because FIFA just can't manage a career mode game. So if I was ever interested in a career mode game, I would be playing Football Manager, which I actually do every year. If you look at my Steam profile, I think I have maybe 400 to 600 hours every year on a Football Manager game, which is very unhealthy, but we won't talk about that for now. I'm going to show you guys quickly my team on Ultimate Team. I haven't played at all lately. But this is my team as it stands. I haven't played for the last 2 weekend leagues in a row. I'm hoping I can play soon. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. Let's have a quick little preview pack. Team of the year, please. Yep. Unlucky. Atletico Madrid, never buying that pack. Terrible. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, so this is my team as it stands, and also my bench, if you're interested. Show is the big player that I miss, and Benzema, I don't know. I'll see. I haven't actually tested Icardi at all. As you can see, I have 0 games played. So I'll have to see how he plays, and I'm still looking for a replacement over Piqué as well, because it's kind of hard, sorry, having a Barcelona player in your team. But he's been a very loyal card to me this year, and admittedly, I do really love playing with Spanish players as well. Because obviously I'm a big fan of the Spanish national team as a Spaniard myself. And the Militao card has absolutely killed it for me this year. FM is very addictive. Absolutely it is. Football Manager, do you guys usually go with like easier saves, or like do you guys go with like really tough saves where you start from like the Vanarama conference? Like where do you guys kind of draw the line there? I like doing a bit of both every year. I like having a kind of mid-tier club save. I like having an elite club save, but not like Real Madrid type club, but just more like something like an Arsenal, to see how fast it would take to get rid of the dead weight in the team. Real Madrid save, fair enough. Henry, you must like absolutely enjoy the save from start to finish. The thing is, I feel like this year they've managed the kind of end game a little bit better. A lot of the clubs become a little bit too rich, in my opinion. So like for me, it was impossible to actually end up going to buy some of the big players in the world until they were really old. When your club loses, then you just go full fantasy mode. I think that's the beauty of Football Manager, right? You're upset with real life, and you create something that you think would never happen, and it's so cool that it allows you to do that. And it's just there's so much detail too, which makes it much more vivid. Yeah. All right, I don't know. We'll see what happens with Ultimate Team. Hopefully, I can make a few investments and see what happens there. Um, Matt Target has transferred out their teammates. Oh god, mate, I'm sorry. Who knows? You might get acquired as a manager playing FM. Trust me, not kidding when you say this. I've been. No, I agree with that. I think, for example, like I mean, there's also like famous transfers, right? I think Firmino was actually scouted on FM by Hoffenheim. I don't know if you remember that, Sahaj. What do you think of Real's chances in the Champions League this year? You're a Liverpool fan, so you're hoping you get another shot at our guys. Nolan. Honestly, I think we've got a good shot, but we need to make sure that Modric and Kroos stay fit because they're very important players that we need to stay fit. Even Benzema as well. If we can play our full team, I actually think we do beat Chelsea. Hot take, but I actually generally do believe that. We will see. We will see. Not Chelsea, sorry, but as in like we can definitely beat PSG. I don't even know why I said Chelsea. Our defense looks leaky. Having said that, I don't think PSG's defense looked particularly good either, and I think we can overrun them in the midfield. Sorry, I was just thinking about Chelsea because I was so upset about when we were playing basically like a half alive Sergio Ramos, Ferland Mendy fresh from injury, getting re-injured after that game. I mean, Nacho unfortunately wasn't great there. Yeah, it was a tough game versus Chelsea. FM is Metaverse. Vinicius right wing back. Yeah. Barcelona are actually cracked on FM, like they aren't in debt. They won UCL first season in my Real Madrid save. I think the main issue with FM is that I think in previous years a lot of top clubs would do very stupid transfers. This year I think they've done a little bit better where um, a lot of clubs now consolidate on good transfers only. So for example, United, who are the classic team that always dominates FPL, now are pretty much unstoppable. And City are usually worse than usual. Because for example, when you look at the City team on paper now, I mean they should be dominating football for several years to come, and they do that in in my FM save. Haven't played too many saves this year though. I'll probably get back into it when I'm a little bit more free. But yeah, Ben Foster's tweet. Let's have a look. I don't actually think I follow Ben Foster on Twitter. Maybe I do actually. Sorry. Gutted you're not there tonight. Got the stinky COVID. A bit like having a bad cold. Looking forward to watching the boys in action. Huge game. Damn. But that might mean that he has less chances of playing the next game because obviously you want him to rest. Darshan, could you please rate my team and help in plans ahead, please? Overall 150k. DM'd you my team. Yep, I'll have a look, Darshan. Thank you so much as well for the donation. Really appreciate it. Let's have a look. Is this you, Darshan? Can you just confirm? 1 mil in the bank. Need your opinion on the long term of the XI. Yeah, so I think I guess Lucas Moura is a little bit of a questionable one. Long term, this is our play, right? So we play Kane this week. I guess you live with Fernandes, who has a good game versus Burnley, and then maybe he's got 25. So I guess the way your team is looking like now, maybe you might be one of the few players who skips from Salah. It depends on what the Double Game Week news is. Feel free to contact me closer to the deadline because I think one thing to actually say in terms of the long-term health of the team is that we want to look at players who have as many games as possible. So Dennis and King will probably still have a double game week in the future. Rafinha should as well. Coutinho, we don't know exactly what the status of him is. It seems like Target had transferred him out, but we don't know what happens there. Spurs will actually have a lot of time to actually pick up their games. Maybe I would say the only transfer that I would be interested in is maybe moving away from Lucas Moura into someone else. And Alonso could be moved on as well. I'm a bit of a big fan of just going for a double City backline and going for Laporte over Alonso. Just because even though City don't have many chances of doubles, their single game weeks will be much more appetizing, I think. Just on a week-to-week basis, I'm very happy to play a double City defense, especially with their kind of lineup of games. And we know, for example, like you watched them versus Chelsea, that was a game where I actually went double City defense and was quite happy to own them for that game. So maybe the only transfer I would really make is over Lucas Moura. And then in game week 28, I kind of like the move of moving De Gea into Ramsdale. I know it sounds crazy booking a transfer for a keeper in the future, but as a De Gea owner, that was my genuine plan. Because if you look at De Gea's games, You know, 27 is where it really gets tough. So I think there's a perfect transfer where you go De Gea versus Watford, then you go straight into Ramsdale versus Watford, and it's really, really nice. I kind of like that. And the one question that's going to plague the team is going to be what to do with Salah. And I mean, if we're being honest here, they've got a great game versus Norwich in 26 and then a potential blank in 27. What we could do is maybe sidestep Salah until 26, maybe. Maybe if, let's say, Fernandes in your team has a double game week in 25, then you can actually go Fernandes and then swap into Salah here. It's so weird, though, because they have a blank in 27. I'm not a fan of that whatsoever. Having 3 players with a blank then, but I think we kind of live with that because maybe the rest of the league all has Salah. Or, I mean, if you want to make an even ballsier decision, you just go with Fernandes all the way to 28 because they still have a good game in 26 and 27, and there's no reason to maybe drop Fernandes. That could be something that we actually have to think about in the future. Whole of FPL are a Watford fan tonight. Pretty much. I mean, do we actually stand to benefit if anything happens negatively to Watford? Not really, right? Most people don't have Bachmann, so it's totally fine. And yeah. Man United to win the league this decade. Thoughts everyone don't hate it now. I'm gonna go with no, Sahaj. I'm sorry about that. Real Madrid buying Lucas Leiva and every save on FM. Tony kills me. Yeah, I don't know what that's about. I didn't really see that myself. You almost got Foster for a hit. Dodge that one. Yeah, I think keepers for a hit are a mistake. And as someone who's taken, unless it's like, you know, a keeper has, you're trading in for an elite keeper. You're in the tiny Pedro cult. I mean, good luck, Silent Fusion. I mean, you could really pop off. I think only those who captain King will get a boost. I mean, if you captain King or Dennis, you would get a boost, right? That's just how it works. The live FPL website is down. They're probably kind of calculating effective ownership for people outside of the top 10k. So we'll see what happens there. I mean, it'll be interesting. If I go for Fernandes now, I wonder what happens to my team. I have 3.8 million in the bank. It's a tricky situation, isn't it? Jamie Vardy. Am I watching the Watford game? I'll probably skip out on it, to be quite honest. Hey, Captain Pedro fans. I'm just thinking, Nice, Michael. Good luck with that. Very, very ambitious, but very huge differential at the same time. How much is the effective ownership of João Pedro, Michael? Alonso and bench might haunt me. I let Bruno start. I think that's fine. I don't think Alonso's going to have that crazy a ceiling, hopefully. His ownership might be quite low as well, shouldn't it? 23%. Okay, that's quite high still, but I don't think it's not that haunting, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say. You feel like you only went for Dennis because my mini league opponent hadn't captain. Fair enough. Fair enough, Felipe. Nice. So we're basically getting a monster Pedro haul for Michael, hopefully. You're kind of hoping Kayembe hauls for for Jack. Definitely, man. That would be crazy. I guess if the effective ownership is 2.5% in the top 10k, it just means a lot of people captain him, just like Michael. Pedro owners watch from behind the sofa. Nah, I think you guys will be fine with João Pedro. Good luck with that. All right, guys. Well, I think that's it for the stream today. Thank you guys so much for joining. If you guys can like and subscribe, that would be awesome. I look forward to seeing you guys in the future. I hope you guys take care and have a wonderful weekend. Try shorts format that bangs nowadays. It's pretty niche in FPL community. Definitely, Sahaj. Feel free to join Discord, and it'll be a pleasure actually talking to you about it, especially if you're interested in content as well. Thank you, guys. Take care.